and I appreciate that. As if people might not know you, there might be a few people in my chat who don't. Trihex, who are you?
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I am Trihex. I'm the face of the very, very popular emote Tryhard. You've probably seen my face spammed in many a chat across the entire Twitch sphere. I have been broadcasting on Twitch for a very, very long time. I've been active here since February 2011. The global emote came into existence November 2012. And then it blew up to become a routinely top 3 most spammed emote per month since 2015 onward. And the legacy of Tryhard is still being written to this day because things are still happening. Whatever was happening in 2015 is very different from what's happening now in 2019. So whether I want to or not, I get thrown into a lot of conversations about the significance of racial relations and accountable behavior across the uses of emotes throughout all of Twitch, whether I want to or not. But I of course rise to the occasion and try to do my best to represent for the good fights and all of Black people and persons of color and all that good stuff. Sorry, I didn't have anything prepared here. Forgive me if I made kind of rambling.
No. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I'm giggling. I accidentally switched over to DMs, so I just It's okay though. There was nothing bad.
Here's one thing I've learned. So we've all learned a lot in October, and I've learned that conclusively that Discord is not a private medium.
No.
So whatever you're throwing on Discord, I don't care who you DMing, it ain't private. So if you want to be private, I wouldn't be on Discord.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I actually get nervous just, I think that's really unfortunate, the leaking DMs thing. Not even just like accidentally doing it on stream, but other streamers doing it intentionally and other people doing it as well.
You mean that like in like an attempt in an assaultive manner, right? Like they're like you see it done to like expose someone typically, right? Or prove some hypocrisy. Well, you said in the DMs, right?
Yeah.
That's generally what I've seen too. I remember my first time actually, and it's like it's like a minor derail from our core topic here.
No,
but
we're fine. We're here to chat.
I was shocked about this whenever like I want to say it was like Keemstar because I didn't know who that was until like I don't know like 2014. I don't know if that's like an earlier enough time for relevant to his like whateverism, and just like. And the first video I saw was just like, like 3 different DM logs in the video. And that's like the whole topic is like what was in the DMs. I'm just like, damn, is this what we do now? I thought what happened to being private? We just expose anyone at all costs now? What happened to confidentiality? Where did that come from? So.
No, I 100% feel that. And like, it's unfortunate because I don't know your experience with this, but I'm very busy with preparing for streaming, and my friends are my mods, my community, other streamers. Like those are my friends at this point. I'm also in Indiana, so it's not like I have a lot of people to go and like meet as a non-binary person, but it's just like kind of frustrating because now I'm always on edge with people I would like to think of as friends, but I don't know, and that's so unfortunate.
Unfortunate that it's the reality. Either you're gonna remain on edge because you want to be proactive and not having any miscommunication occur, or you get too comfortable and then you get forgetful and then you get negligent and then you get stung by the fire. You're ouch, fire hot. Let me not do that again. And that's what you kind of learn. So.
Very unfortunate, but it happens. That's the reality we're in right now, and hopefully we can find some people that we know we trust.
Well, look, you know what? Let me reframe that though, because this topic may end on a negative that DMs everywhere are inevitably gonna succumb to Murphy's law. What can't happen will happen. So what can happen, they'll leak. Therefore, it will happen at some point eventually, right? So therefore, don't create them is the kind of the takeaway from the whole thing there. However, I want to clarify though that the positive here is the acknowledgement of the power of voice calls, which is a boosted intimacy anyway, because You get so much more of that of the nonverbal communication. Well,
Yes.
I guess it's fair. Yeah, because I would say that like in that interpretation, it's like tone and pacing of your delivery of what you're saying all come into play, right? There's like an inflection to what you're saying rather than just what is being typed, and you have to like simulate that through emojis or other tone modifiers. So yeah, phone calls, audio calls,
Or video
more
calls.
intimate
Yeah.
communication. Yeah, these are good things, and it's also why TwitchCon or just in general gathering of Twitch people is so big for me and you, because it's like the off the grid. Just this, not even because I want to like, I'm gonna talk, hear about what this person did, not, because it's like I can put the shield down for once. Like I do it 364 days a year. I can put the shield down and just have like a real convo. And if I get something wrong, hey, look, if I get something wrong or I misspeak or I had an assumption about something or someone, if it's me and you, cool. It's me and you for you to correct me. It's not me and the Twitch chat to get blown up over and not have like any like yeah. So that feels really, really good. That's a big thing I look forward to, probably the most when it comes to going to TwitchCon particularly.
Yeah.
Or any gathering.
I also just love the in-person interactions, honestly. I love being able to give hugs. And though next TwitchCon, I do have to say slightly less drinking would be good. I don't drink like ever. So people just hand me drinks and I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, no, Eva, stop. Yikes. So
I'm not a big drinker either. I wasn't until actually it's TwitchCon 1. TwitchCon 2015 is whenever I didn't get it. I was never in an environment where I felt like I was around people who like got me, going to like a regular bar or going to like, I don't know. I don't want to stigmatize it as like normie sphere, but I mean, I'm just for the sake of like brevity here. Normie sphere environments like a traditional downtown bar and just, where my coworkers would go. I go there and I feel not really in at all. So like drinking just makes me feel more anxious than it does like making me feel into the environment. But when I was at the E3 party for Twitch in 2015, when I was at the TwitchCon 2015, when I'm around all the homies, yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, let's drink, let's do it, whatever. Like, yeah. So I'm completely right there with you. Particularly the Discord parties, because they're not part of Twitch, right? So they have to flex really hard at the Outflex Twitch on their party. So they're like spending big on the venue and everything else here with the open bar for all the Discord partners. If you didn't know, by the way, nudge. Yeah, it's like people are, can I curse here? Probably not, but like people get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, cool. People get shit faced at the Discord party. It is like, I'm like, yo, it's day 0. Y'all, there's like panels tomorrow at 8 a.m. Are y'all okay? Like, yeah, there was a lot of slushed individuals at those Discord parties. From what I recall.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
So,
also, I do want to just say we have had it like 3 people who came on in a row where they would curse and then go, wait, is that allowed here? And so I'm really impressed with you. Everyone else is like cursing and then wait. That was impressive. I just want to let you know. Trihex is on it. It.
Presentation mode. Max.
I appreciate that. To get into our topic, what kind of experience? Because like as I prefaced, I don't experience racism on this platform. I have my own experiences with sexism and with transphobia. But what are some of the basic things you do experience that you see as racism on the platform?
So there's 2 components to this one, right? First would probably be what I experience, and then like what I've witnessed externally, right? So what I've experienced firsthand is the typical stuff, the lowest common denominator, like, oh, I don't like you for whatever reason, so I'm just gonna throw out the hard R at you, space it out, that way I get around filters. I'm gonna spell it as creatively as possible to dodge whatever predetermined filters you have in your chat and get your attention. And I'll throw in some tryhards in the beginning and the end of it. That way, make sure you see it or whatever. This is what I've seen. It's typically out of context, unprovoked, not contextually relevant to whatever I'm currently broadcasting at that time. It's just like, oh, hey, I found that you're that guy with the face, so I'm gonna do this at you. When I've generally seen, usually this is my burner account. No big deal. I look at it like it's a cry for attention. And if I can back up here a little bit here, whenever this does happen, I just kind of treat it like a little brother begging for attention from the older brother. Like the younger brother can't get positive attention from the older brother because, like, piss off nerd, I'm busy right now. So like the only attention you get from big brother is negative attention by like being annoying or being a brat or whatever. So you're still getting what you want in the end result, the attention, but it's not through the positive manner, unfortunately. And so I look at it kind of like that. It's they want attention, they can't get it. I don't know, maybe they have like huge admiration for the emo because it gets spammed in their real favorite streamers chat or whatever, and they want their other dad, me, to notice because their original dad, the other streamer, is like blowing up Tryhard or whatever. So they come in here, they want my attention, and they kind of want to fast forward through all the getting to know me and all the affection building, just like fast forward into the express lane to, hey, I got acknowledged, whether it be in the form of a timeout or not. So that's generally what I've had. Nothing of sincere effort or anything concrete. That's why I'm so passive on it. I'm just like, all right, dude. Well, you threw out the one word you can think of that forced something to happen here, but it was boring, it was uncreative, and you know what you did. So we move on from it. That's my experience generally. What I've observed on Twitch though, and also let me bring up here, I'll be clarify for framing here that when these racist things happen in my chat, it is 100% the minority. Like I deal with like 1% of what I feel anyone else deals with because of how I carry myself, what I condone, my behavior, and all the other stuff. It's like if you really think that I am that, then you are just blind to the conduct and how I carry myself, how I speak, and everything. All the communication realms, right? You know how I roll. So if you still think really that I'm that, then I don't know. You're just delusional at that point. So I'm a huge exception to that. So Tryhard's always been used as like a positive thing. That's actually how the emote became a global emote back in 2012, was because like the face I made from that picture originally was like so popular, my community couldn't get enough of it. So they were photoshopping it on everything and they were just spamming it in the chat all the time. But rather than be the Tryhard emote, they were spamming imager links of their photoshopped works of like my face on, I mean, you name it, Mount Rushmore, Pokemon trainers, Magneto from X-Men, whatever it may be, literally, for shitpost. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, again, it was a positive thing in my chat, and it remained such when it became a global emote, and then it blew up from other factors outside of my company bubble. Now, as for other elsewhere in the chats, yeah, I generally see it's like the negative thing I see is that it's interpreted as a racist dog whistle for Black people or persons of color appearing on the screen. So if it's like, if it's an esport event and it's like a Black person coming on the camera, Tryhard. If it's also if you're playing, I don't know, I don't know what games exactly, but any game that I would assume Hearthstone, I'm wrong here, but any game where like apes or monkeys appear, yeah, Tryhard, get spammed. From what I hear. Again, this is where I'm not as savvy. This is actually where I had to like learn. I learned a lot. It's actually not until TwitchCon 2016 that I was hearing from other POCs about how really bad Tryhard is getting them, and it was getting banned in other chats. Like I didn't know that until 2016 because I'm, at the time I was a much smaller broadcaster and I was just a lot less aware of like the entirety of the Twitch ecosystem. I was only on Mario. I was playing Mario in speedruns. I wasn't like, the other more poppin' categories where there's this huge realm of what we now know is just chatting and previously is IRL and just in general, like streamer, ex-streamer engagement. Yeah, I didn't know about any of that stuff. So I was blissfully ignorant on all that there. So I was getting woke on what was really going on in 2016. And I wasn't proactive on like trying to deter things until 2017.
And what made you start being proactive in 2017?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I would say, okay, it's not going to be the prettiest answer, but it is the honest answer. Kotaku was reached out to me to make an article about how Tryhard is the number one most banned emote, and this is at the peak of, I would assume, I could be wrong here, I forget the exact timeline, the peak of the Overwatch XQC suspension, because Tryhard 7 was used in this chat. or whatever. So there was, his whole fallout over the emote and being removed from the Overwatch League. There was I forget the exact time here. There was the whole Ice Poseidon Tryhard usage, and I think the airport doxing bomb threat happened in 2017. So there was just a lot of things that the emotes usage was associated with, and Kotaku wanted to reach out to me for the easy views, because hearing Black Eye's interpretation of what's happening here with all the things that are happening external to my direct involvement with my symbolism and imagery would probably be, it's a hot topic, right? So they reached out to me for it, and I realized, fuck, man, this has nothing to do with me. But if I don't say anything here, my lack of engagement, my lack of proactive commentary is in itself a conversation enabling status quo. So I have to get involved now. They are offering the platform, so I got to do something. So their reach out to want to interview me led to me then speaking about it. And what shocked me, though, was the fact that it seemed to be kind of surprised what my take was there. People thought I would just immediately say Tryhard is racist, and I'm gonna voluntarily remove it. I don't know. My reaction was not what I expected, actually. I felt like what I was saying wasn't really radical. I guess maybe that's a little bit of a cocky thing for me or whatever. But what I said in that interview, I didn't feel was a really dramatic take, ultimately. Because there's nothing about Tryhard the emo that is inherently racist. It's really the accountability of those elsewhere who just happen to be using it that is debatably racist.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you. And that's a conversation we ended up having. We watched your video where you cover the Tryhard emote and your opinions on that, and Hassan banning it, which I thought was a really interesting. So first off, thank you for making that video. I understand it's probably because you probably answer this a ton, right? So
yeah. Oh yeah. I'm really happy that video. I've probably done that. Another reason why it came out so well, though, is because I've answered that question probably 100 times now to that length on the stream, until I finally made a video because I got so good at explaining everything about it and also exploring the most common follow-up, which is like, if it's problematic, you should just delete it because it's racist, right? So I even explained in principle and then elaborated with an example, and then we have the tangible example of literally Hassan, my good friend, banning it. So yeah, I had my principles reinforced through direct action as well. So yeah, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think we all appreciated it. I know I asked chat for their questions on it. We had a question. I think Scuffed Lefty asked, do you think banning Tryhard will ultimately lead people to posting it more in other channels because it feels edgy? I thought that was a kind of interesting question, and I wondered your thoughts on it.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. No, you're fine. So, absolutely, like, we have considered, and I know I told you this, and I've talked to my chat about this, we've considered banning your emotes. I'm still kind of back and forth because I want to have you on, I want to talk to you, and I want your community to be able to use that. So I don't want to take that away from them. But at the same time, we want to make sure that people of color feel very comfortable in our chat, and we don't want that used as a racist dog whistle, or them to be seeing that in other chats that way and feel that it is being used that way here. But what are your thoughts? Do you think that it will embolden people to use it others places and feel edgy?
No, just to clarify here, you're asking if I ban Tryhard, like if I voluntarily banned it from Twitch, the entire website? Or
I think in individual streams, like individual streamers banning the emote, does it make it feel edgier or cooler using it in other places?
Yes, I would say so. Because once it gains notoriety as being the most banned emote, I mean, that's not inaccurate. I have no way of proving that's a valid stat, but it doesn't surprise me that it was definitely way up there whenever the Overwatch Esports League did ban it. And then someone was able to figure out what the exact ban phrases were, and one of the only emotes in there that was banned was Tryhard. So they kind of probably took that as anecdotal example and like ran with it to the highest extreme possible, which is that's the most banned emote. I think that yeah, if you whatever you make is taboo will ultimately just this is like reinforced through what prohibition. Whatever you taboo is ultimately going to create a black market for if there's like demand for that supply and the supply is considered explicit. So yeah, it would become edgy and that it would create a new problem. But that's also why I'm kind of like I'm kind of on both ends here. Like you have your right as a community broadcaster and as an ambassador of your entire community to do whatever you want to do to allow whatever you want to allow to make it as comfortable for you as possible and others to be welcomed as well if that's in your agenda. But at the same time here, there are consequences to going that route, which will include byproducts of your attempt to censor, but like deter certain like chat freedoms, I would say. Sorry, I know it's kind of wordy, but like, yeah, you definitely can make it edgier if you want. If that will happen, you have to address that too. Not to mention, you also have to like deal with like, well, why is emo banned? And I feel like that reaction would be the same for if you ban anything, right? If you ban Hot Pocket because it becomes like a sexist dog whistle, or if you ban Tryhard because it's a racist dog whistle. You can just go on and on here with the whole thing, but like I think all of them would get the same reaction, which would be you pinned on a defensive corner of like, why are you banning it? Why are you censoring it? Why are you so, I don't know, snowflakey or whatever? And again, not saying at all you are, but someone can just say that now and you're immediately on the defensive end. You have to like, defend what your choices were rather than like, I don't know, have like this ability to completely disengage from it if you didn't want to.
Yeah.
I think only like, because if one person says that and then like another like 10 like bandwagon with that one person's framing of how they perceive the situation to be, yeah, now you got to defend it or just deal with the problematic chat and just time out like 10 people at one time.
Yeah, that's what we deal with this a lot because we do get rid of Tryhard and Hot Pocket if they seem like they're not in some form of context, and people will get upset about it, but they get upset about anything that we eliminate. And so it becomes this weird area where I'm like, I almost think I just need to have a whole video on this is why we ban assholes and people who might be engaging in assholery and we can't tell. I'm sorry, your tone does not come across in text when you don't give us the context, friend. Plus, we're dealing with 20 million chatters. Chill out. Like, so absolutely, I hear you. And it is a frustration that we end up dealing with. But
well, let me perhaps go into why I think that is though. I've only told you like the consequences of it. I always like to come back to a solution-based conclusion on everything. Like what we need to make things better, right? So that makes conversations more fun, I would think. If you agree.
Absolutely, go for it.
So great. So the reason why I think that is because expectations versus reality. Because there's been like, I would say generally unpoliced communication en masse on the anonymous, low accountability of individual users' internet for 2 decades now. Yeah, it's been the wild, wild west for better or for worse. A lot of great things have come from that. The freedom of an individual person to be able to do things like Edward Snowden, or just the freedom of information through the power of Wikipedia and things like that. But also a lot of negatives have come as well, with just like the bad of the really bad of the really really bad, as there's a spectrum to the whole thing, right? And the problem now is we're now seeing a rise of representation and more of what's the word here, voices from, help me out here, disenfranchised communities. Is that
marginalized?
There we go. I was looking for the word marginalized communities. And yeah, you had a train running 100 miles an hour or whatever, 300 miles an hour in one direction for 20 years, and we're trying to like culture course correct now, and it's a very abrupt change from what was status quo for quite a while. So it's a lot. Pumping those brakes will take longer than 1 year, longer than 5. Maybe it'll take as long as it took to get there, 20. Maybe it's really longer than that. I mean, you look at the root of sexism IRL and how bad things have been for women the last forever, right?
Yeah.
And we're course correcting here, but these are all problems that didn't happen overnight. So the culture will take decades, if not centuries, debatably, to completely get to 50-50 on, or even like whatever you want to call it, like objective fairness for all involved there.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's
absolutely.
just like it's going to take a while for the culture to change. We can use our tools we have now, the moderation, to kind of like bring things together. But ultimately, the average anonymous internet users coming in, I would expect with a different expectation than perhaps what someone more savvy like yourself wants out of your community. So you have to correct them a little bit. I think that
Yeah.
and I think not having that complete freedom that they're used to, or having like just real world consequences, because those who are affected by those things are actually now finally in their realm of communication for once, rather than just two cis people just like saying or doing whatever. And now it's like, oh well damn, now everyone's more visible now, and it's a little bit different.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that might be why people get mad and are like, well, why are you doing it like this now? And I don't understand. And then they'll throw out the whataboutisms about like or the whataboutisms about like how like you're in the minority for wanting all this control, when it's like, no, I just don't want you to be an asshole. That's really what it is.
Yeah. And it ends
You
up
know,
being
just
so difficult to explain that to people. But what do you do in your chat? Like, how do you try to help course correct your chat? Because this is something I've been working hard. I try to talk to my chat and explain to them what the expectations are and why. I try to talk, like, I'll have someone come in and say, do you like men or women sexually? And I'm just like, do you walk up to someone IRL and ask them what like they prefer in someone's pants sexually? Like, it's bizarre to me. So I try to have that, and then we have our moderation, but it never feels like enough, of course, because of the reasons you're saying, right? People are so used to being able to just say whatever the fuck to whoever the fuck on the internet and have no repercussions, and then they're so salty because we ban them. Like, how do you handle your chat? Do you feel like this is easier for you? Do you feel like there are reasons for that, or do you feel like it's not? How do you handle it?
my chat. So my community is they're pretty savvy on generally where I stand on most things, which is typically a progressive one. I can't think of like much that my stance would be, say, different than yours on any given thing. So I mean, we can do like a whatever test on that if you wanted to for some reason. But generally, yeah, they know where I stand on things, and usually it's to a point now where it's self moderating. I rarely find that I'm in like a dire disagreement and I'm at conflict with my chat. It's usually like a negative minority that I can choose to ignore because my chat was just ridiculed them to death, or I can engage and try to like um help them see my perspective better and frame it in relevance to what they're perceiving or misperceiving. And usually they either come around or they get salty and just leave. But it's rarely like I don't know, lose or whatever. So
Mm.
let me go back here and try to answer your questions. I'm sorry, I hate that I'm dodging it so often. Um, when it comes to that, I typically will. I rarely ban. I ban if it's like a throwaway account and throwing out hard R and there's nothing of substance here. But if it's like someone having like a questionable take or saying something debatably sexist or whatever, or I don't know, like or like I don't know, something that's like ironically sexist, but like I'm just like
Mm.
I can't tell if you're really just are you actually being a pig right now? I really can't tell. Um, I will usually call it out by name, like, well, tell me about that. Explain it for me. Elaborate on that here. Tell me why X person. I can't think of that situation right now, but tell me why you feel the way about that. And when I ask for elaboration, they usually get pretty quiet and they usually peace out.
Yeah.
When you give them the platform to like elaborate on their stupid take or whatever it may be, they vanish usually.
That's so
Voluntarily,
wild. That's
obviously.
so different. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's fine.
That's so wild. It's very different from like my experience, because I will have people who will just sit there and go through all their weird ass science as to why like women are just intrinsically biologically bad at math, you know? And then I just have to, and they just go down this route. We have these weird fucking trolls. I don't understand. And I'm just like, I'm so tired, you know? So
I'm sorry to deal with that. I will admit, I've learned a lot from my girlfriend, as far as like how different it is for individuals other than myself. I think that I honestly do think I have a very privileged experience on Twitch in this regard. I don't deal with racism to the point of like where it really affects my performance on streaming. It's actually more my performance in games. Whenever I play my games bad, whenever I'm like in my fields, I'm like, oh, my self-worth is being attacked right now. I suck at games. But not usually not like community or individual engagement. It doesn't really get me stressed out or whatever, because I properly pad myself away. That way I'm not like emotionally thin-skinned or like really, really vulnerable to the core part. It's usually my self-esteem and self-worth X my performance in games, which again goes back to my speed running altogether.
interesting.
So I haven't had to deal with this issue a lot. So when it comes again to course correcting in my stream, I will give them the platform. Usually because their take is really, really stupid. They will try, if they choose to elaborate, I'll usually tackle it in some kind of like pseudo live debate format, because I'm usually playing Mario Maker and I'm able to like, you know, interact in a pretty frequent manner because I can just pause the game whenever I want to. But let's go back here to how I moderate particularly. I'm a big fan of rehabilitation over retribution. So if they're not a throwaway account, generally I enjoy my mods do like three passes here. First time, 69 seconds. You know, they have a little over a minute to reflect on why they were timed out. And I usually tell the mods to opt to like, you know, give them a reason. I know it's a lot more work, but why? Why were they timed out? Because they might not know. They might be oblivious here, actually. I know some of them it's like, bro, you know what you did. But like a lot of them, I don't want to give them that assumption, actually. I don't think it's fair to just like, you know, hey, you know you did, dumbass. So first time, 69 seconds. Second time, I think I did the date numbers, 420 seconds, just because it's like, it's over 5 minutes, right? It's like over 5 minutes. Yeah. It's over 5 minutes. So they have like, again, they have to reflect because they know like, you know, hey, look, it's not an hour, but it's not 5 minutes. So it's like you want to come back and communicate and engage, but you have to at some point reflect that for 1% here, I would think, about what you did. Even if you're going to tab out immediately, you're tapping out knowing you did something. So reflect at least a little bit here on what you did for your second pass. Third pass, I give them the 6996, which is like, I think it's about 2 hours. And it's like, yeah, you're not banned all day. So you can just like, again, really think about why you got the third time here. And the fourth time is a permaban at that point. Or it's open to be permabanned if they want to, because you didn't get it. Like you were given 3 reasons, you were given 3, you know, increments of escalation of timed out, hoping for you to reflect with supplied reasons. If you're that thick-skulled, then I can't help you, or I'm out of patience to help you. So you're out.
Yeah,
and that's pretty well. I mean, maybe my mods are low key telling me that they're tired of dealing with that or not. But the system I've gone for works pretty well so far.
Yeah, we recently just started switching over to timing out more than banning. I know our mods are a little bit like, oh, I don't have time to explain to everyone. Just because I think because we specifically talk social justice warrior politics, it makes it a little more difficult, right? Whereas you're playing games. I do feel like I got less harassment playing games. But I really value that perspective that I keep thinking working to reform behavior. Yes?
Also, let me elaborate here. I'm sorry, I forgot one last thing here. The reason why I'm not ban happy is because when you ban someone, they're not going to reflect. That's the big thing there. I realized when you ban someone, they write your stream off as a loss because they can't go back there anymore because they are permabanned. It will tell them that they are permabanned, and they're not going to reflect. It's like, okay, well, that happened, and they're going to like do like some kind of like ego containment or like ego preservation, and just like, you know, rewrite the perspective of what happened there. They're a snowflake, they're SJW cuck, I don't really give a shit, and fuck them, so I'm moving on. And then you know they'll like, you know, like, you're the loser, you lost because you banned me, because you can't handle the savage truth that I'm delivering in the Twitch chat every minute, every second, clackety, 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 clack, right? So then they just move on to the next person who's less of a snowflake, and then they they don't change. So that's why permaban, it has consequences if you're too trigger happy with it, I would think. Again, maybe that is of your comfort. I'm not saying that you or anyone else here, maybe a different application there, but there are consequences to doing that. And I do think if your priority is to rehab and reform, giving them at least one chance to reflect is going to help a little bit.
Yeah, we've been doing that a lot more. And I know some of our mods were nervous about it initially because we do work really hard on keeping it a cozy community, especially for minorities. We don't want people saying racist or sexist or transphobic things and just getting away with it. But at the same time, we want people to be able to have that reflection, as you're talking about. That's really important. But we also recognize that our community, like our safe space to dive deep into gender theory, isn't going to be the place that a lot of people do reform. So we're really grateful for communities like yours who might take a little more time on those people coming in. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. Speaking of reforming and reflecting, you had a moment, I forget the year, we talked about it, but you had, was it 2018? You said a slur and you got banned for a particular amount of time, right?
Yep, correct. Yep, it was October 5th, 2018. I remember the date because I remember everything about it. It was a very, very stressful time for me. It was a huge pivoting change. Correct. Yes. I guess to briefly tell a story here, October 5th, 2018 was the day that Super Mario Party came out for Nintendo Switch, the newest Mario Party. I decided to, use that time to kind of glorify toxic gaming rhetoric. And I had some friends over and who had already been drinking. So they were already pre-gamed rowdy. These are friends who claim that they, were beast mode at Mario Party. So we hop in and we're playing a 4-way mini game. Also, bring up here the context here that Mario Party is incredibly toxic. You already know this is gonna end. Yeah, it's and we were playing a 4-way mini game. Each player has to individually accomplish a goal or whatever, and they were all collaborating together in this 4-way mini game to make sure I lost and came in last. And they were screaming things at me. Like, this is again, remember they were pretty buzzed. These were context here too, by the way, they were friends of my friend. So they were not exactly Twitch etiquette. I didn't pregame them on what they could or couldn't say. So they're just kind of throwing out all kinds of shit, bad shit. And he was screaming at me yeah, take that dick, bitch, just shit like that. And at the peak of the moment, I was just like, y'all play like single syllable F slur. And then but I did it in a very pejorative, negative, hurtful manner, and trying to get back at them because they were just calling me all kinds of shit. And I as soon as I said it, I was like, oh fuck, I wish I hadn't said that, because I was already at that time on my whole advocacy for progressive candidates in the presidential election, huge Bernie Sanders supporter, blah blah blah. So I was already all about the inclusion and reforming and just kind of using less of that edgy humor and less of those kinds of terminologies. And so I immediately apologized after I said it. And I did a second unprovoked apology at the end of the stream where I was I went on a 5-minute thing about y'all, I should have said that. Ultimately, I think back to it now, it's kind of dumb. I let a game get me to that point. It's kind of stupid. But by that point, maybe because I brought so much attention to it, because I apologized twice. I don't really know how the whole thing here works, but I was reported for it, and I got escalated to Twitch's review desk, and I was thrown suspension for hateful speech. So that happened, and which was one thing. So what happened that night, or what's the next day? I forget. I don't know. I was at first I was in retaliation mode big time, because I was man, I got what? I got 30 days for saying that. That's it, or that's all I did, and I get this. Meanwhile, and again, I had all the whataboutisms in my head. I'm like, man, but this streamer here says uses retard in a negative way, and this streamer here uses autism in a negative way, and I'm just like blowing out all these whataboutisms, and it's like, me, and I'm like, my conduct, I've been on this platform for 7 years, and I've done all this shit, and so I was just like heated, and I was like, okay, well, clearly I'm emotional right now. I need to go like, I don't know, like lose No Nut November, or like go jog for like 5 miles and come back and figure out what I'm gonna do. Um, so I didn't do anything. I did want to do an apology. I wanted to come clean because I want everyone to know, because once you're suspended, your channel's offline. It's inaccessible. People will see your channel's terminated, and people can check your ban status, see that you're actually banned at this current time. So whether I wanted to or not, people were already finding out I was banned. So I need to either deter and control the conversation and come clean, which I want to do anyway. So at my thinnest point, where I was emotionally irrational, able to construct a good apology that felt sincere, because I talked with some friends about it, and was like, yeah, I shouldn't have did that. You're right. Yeah. I wish it wasn't such an extreme punishment here, but okay, I'm all up to it. So I did apologize. I've been told from others it was a good apology. I didn't deter, blame, or try to, whataboutism about my conduct record and all this other shit. I just I owned up to it. Yeah, I said it. I shouldn't have said it. I wish I hadn't said it. I don't intend to attack or, belittle marginalized communities. I'm a huge ally to LGBTQIA communities and all the other stuff. And I look forward to seeing y'all soon after I reflect the reform, or something along those lines. I forgot how exactly I said it, but I made it like as good as I could make it. And so that apology happened. And but here's where the plot twist came, though. So this is like typical. Also, I appealed and got my ban dropped from 30 to 7 days. So that was better. But yeah, what happened here though is I already had plans to shoot a skit for TwitchCon that year. So TwitchCon was at the end of October in 2018. The ban happened on a Thursday. It was Thursday, October 5th, 2018, because I was flying out to TwitchCon the next day, or whatever, Friday, whatever it was. The next day, literally, I was flying out to Twitch headquarters in San Francisco because I had to film the skit we already had in motion. So it was this really awkward thing where I got banned the day before with the Twitch HQ. So I go to Twitch HQ, and it didn't hit me until I was in the cafeteria. And there's a very huge cafeteria. I'm just using the word cafeteria very loosely here. It's actually like amazing. It's like amazeballs. It's like state of the art, like world chefs in there just making all the world's best pizza, the world's best whatever you want. They just amazing, right? Because Twitch's QOL is very, very high for all their employees. So the cafeteria is amazing, and they have like a huge like jumbotron with like a 3x3 of streamers at all times. They're just they switch the windows out every like 30 seconds, and they just have all kinds of people on there, small and big, not just like the shrouds or whatever, but like all kinds of streamers on those monitors. So like people are really watching, probably even this stream right now in real time in that cafeteria at Twitch headquarters. But anyways, though, I was there, and when I was going to get a plate, I realized I'm surrounded by Twitch staff, right? There's like just people everywhere. It's like 400 people listening at any given time, and I'm like, who knows about what I did? Who people here actually know? And Twitch is a huge LGBTQ space, so it's like I don't know who's gay or who's not or whatever. But I'm just like, I felt dirty. I felt ugly actually, because I was like, I don't know who here knows, because the only thing people know is what the Kotaku headline was, which was that Trihex got banned for using a homophobic slur on a stream. That's what the headline is. There's no context to supply it, and it's not my position to provide more context, as then I'm essentially diminishing the sincerity of my apology by trying to like damage control. It's not wrong what the headline says, but the assumption from the headline, lack of context, is that I told some openly gay kid to go kill himself during Fortnite or whatever in a heated gamer moment. The extremes here are pretty big for what that could be interpreted as, and people will probably take the worst of them based off of the headline being the maximum clickbait. So that sucked, and I had to eat a lot of dirt for that. But at Twitch headquarters, I'm just like, well, who knows what really happened? I don't even know. I didn't feel good, and I hated that I could be interpreted as like someone who was genuinely hateful rather than really, really regretful and trying to reform. So and it was at that point that I realized that I didn't want to fight anymore. Because up until that point, I was like plotting the comeback. I was like, no, you know what? No, fuck that. When I get back, when I get unbanned, I'm gonna make this kick-ass segment about the history of the F slur and how it's been used in gaming communities for a long time now, and it's been conditioned by the behavior in games, to reinforce the negative connotation. It has something to do with their sexuality. It is about how they're behaving in the game, that they get called that, and that there's all this other shit, right? I was gonna do this whole thing about that, but I realized that all of this was coming from an area of retaliation and not rehabilitation. And at that moment, when I felt that shame around people I didn't even know, I was like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they know about me, but I feel terrible right now. And I thought, I want to let it go. I now want to let it go. I had that revelation. I was Elsa and Frozen. I wanted to let it go. And then at that point, I was happy. I still had another 3 days of being banned left to just take this perspective and really work on my energy for whenever I do get unbanned, so I can then come back just grateful that I have another chance rather than just wanting to attack everyone instead. So and that's real, because I probably would have got more views doing the other thing, but I didn't want to do that anymore. So, and I'm happy for that. So that is pretty much what happened last October. It feels like another planet by now by comparison since then. But yeah, that happened.
I imagine. I definitely imagine. And I saw someone in chat say, why would you bring this up again? I do want to acknowledge, Trihex and I talked about a little bit about what he was comfortable covering. I wouldn't want to bring anything old up that he didn't want to cover. But have there been times where you felt like you can't escape this, or that it's coming back again? I feel like I've heard you talk about this.
So I knew I had to let time heal. I took a pretty big L in reputation, public circles. My Twitter mentions had people who didn't know me, who only heard of me from the Kotaku article, from the no context headlines, that I'm a homophobic bigot and that I should go kill myself. Literally things like that. Yeah, I am intolerant towards your intolerance. So yeah, do that. And that hurt for a while, and it was an uphill battle, because it's what do I do? Do I link them as paste bin that I'm going to generate here of all the elaborate context, which is ultimately not going to really negate the ultimate consequence of me saying what I did in a pejorative manner? No. So I had to take a lot of L's for a while there, and that did suck. But I knew I was hopefully reforming legitimately, and those who did care to listen to what I had to say at that point saw that there was good intent in my heart. But yeah, I also knew that it was important to not bring this up for a while. If I spoke about it and elaborated on any context about that helps me look less bad from the headline that everyone saw publicly, then it could be interpreted as me trying to save face. Yeah. So I didn't talk about it. I swallowed the L, and for those who would care to ask in my stream, I would elaborate on whatever they want to know about it, but I would just opt to not give it full conversation time for a while. Let people think what they want to think. Because if you don't want to hear what I have to say, then you probably already thought I was a bigot in the first place. So I just take the L in your reception and move on from it. So I actually didn't talk about it until this October, believe it or not. I didn't bring up the whole that mentally I was going to retaliate and do this huge F slur segment until October this year, a whole year later, actually. I was gonna say about this again. I'm sorry, I lost train of thought here. And I was telling you all that because I've never felt uncomfortable, but I knew that it's a huge uphill battle, because I have to once I talk about it, people will interpret me talking about it as an assumptive thing of me trying to save face rather than giving elaborative context. So I just didn't want to fight that battle. I didn't want to have to people are so assumptive, dude. I hate that this in social media right now, we got this problem of binary judgment. Things must be thumbs up or thumbs down, must be good or bad. There is no nuance. So people want to skip all the rational, critical thinking, situational, contextual awareness, and they want to just fast forward, lose November, and get the dopamine rush of saying, fuck you, you suck, you're canceled. They want that so bad, dude. And social media reinforces that thinking because it feels so good to just like take a massive dump on someone and then you're done. You're good. You let your nut out. You're done. So that's the what was the bring up again? I don't know. People want to do that. So it's like, yeah, it's an uphill battle to convince them to like, hey, well, I implore you to have some critical thinking and apply some contextual awareness here, because the headline you saw doesn't elaborate on anything here. And also, whenever the incident happened, the VOD got deleted, the clips got deleted. So I have no evidence to even give you that so you can determine for yourself what actually happened, rather than reading someone's summary in written form of an event that happened visually or whatever, in video form. So yeah. So yeah, that's the I'm sorry. I forgot where I was going with this now. I've got it.
No, we got a lot of good information from that. We were just basically talking about like it coming back to you. And I really appreciate, like, I learned something, and I have been learning that same lesson of when you try to give context, people misread it. They think you're defending something. I had like a moment of drama, if you will, on my stream where I totally disagree with the person's behavior, but I would say, well, they did it because they were angry, because people are saying the wrong reason they did it. And I actually talked to them about why they did it. And they're like, heated gamer moment isn't an excuse. And I'm like, no, I'm not justifying. So many people take you like explaining something as justification when it's not. You're just trying to give people like more context, and they take that as like you trying to explain it away. Absolutely not.
I will say, I have gotten heated before on stream about this before, where I've been like, I need you to listen to what I am saying and not interpret what you think I'm saying about something. Listen to what I actually am saying. So what I've learned now is and this is so annoying, but in order to not misconstrue, miscommunicate, or be misinterpreted, you have to say what you're saying and what you mean, and then elaborate on what you don't mean a lot.
Okay.
A lot.
Yeah.
That's like, and the problem is the people who need to hear it the most will already like tune out whenever you're doing what I mean by this is I mean that I do not XYZ, right? But they won't listen to that point anyway. That's the whole thing. It's like the ones who need to be observant are the ones who are often the least observant. So.
Yeah, that's been what I've noticed as well. Literally just yesterday, I'm pointing at my camera and I'm like, I need you to shut your mouth and listen for a minute. Open your listening skills up for a minute, because it gets very frustrating. People hear what they want to hear, or hear like again, as you said, that binary, is it thumbs up or thumbs down, and that's it. We're so quick to move on without context, and it can be very frustrating. I absolutely hear you on that.
The lack of empathy, the ability, the lack of from a mass populace to like not insert themselves in a situation is jarring to me. It's crazy. I'm trying to think of an example here. I don't even. Well, maybe I shouldn't even derail right now. I could think of plenty of examples probably where this is like really playing out in real time, but you get it. I get it all the time, so it's not a big deal.
Absolutely. I did want to, before we left this particular topic, I wanted to ask you, even though I feel like we caught some there, do you have any advice for someone who ends up in this position and genuinely wants to reform? Like they see, I've messed up and I want to improve. What is your advice? Or even your advice for someone who is getting banned from something and might be angry? What would you say, like, tell them to do if they asked you for advice?
Great question. Actually, this is probably something I love that you actually brought it to a constructive, productive endpoint here, because we actually were making just like a bunch of problems, not really talking about how to fix it. So first thing I would say is I implore that person to be as self-reflective as possible here. I think one of the best exercises you can do whenever you are sad, upset, frustrated, or just emotionally irrational would be to create a flow chart. Take a dry erase board or go to MS Paint and be like, all right, well, what do I feel right now? I feel sad, mad, frustrated, whatever, right? Now, why do I feel that way? And you just keep going backwards, further and further in the cause to figure out where you are and why, and get to the source point of it, and then try to tackle it to the best of your ability. That's where you would begin. I am sad because I got banned from Twitch. And I got banned from Twitch because I used hate speech. I used hate speech because I got emotionally irrational in a heated gamer moment and used a personal vocabulary that dehumanizes marginalized people. And then, if you can admit all that, but you're like, yeah, but it's just a word, or yeah, but okay, well, the problem there is you admitted that it does affect the marginalized amount of people. Do you know those people? Do you know who it actually affects? And have you spoke with them lately? If you use things like that, have you, maybe one of your cousins is gay? Have you ever considered asking your gay cousin, hey, when you went to high school, what was that like? What were you called? How were you treated? And then you learn, and you're like, oh shit, damn. And maybe you can relate to that somehow because maybe you went through bullying or went through some kind of like exclusionary social practices in your own off time. you know I don't know, at some point it's gonna be like, all right, do you have basic empathy for other people? And if you don't, then okay, then that's a new problem to deal with, right? But usually you can figure out where you are. I did have I had one very close friend who I knew for a very long time come in my DMs and tell me, listen, normally when I hear someone uses this word, I ghost them. I'm done with them because I've been there too often. The account is too hurtful, and it reveals their true nature. But I know you, referring to me, I know you didn't mean it like this, as I know you very, very well. And I was happy that they reached out to me. And then I was like, hey, well, look, would you mind calling me? Could we like phone call and just talk about it? I'd love to just listen more. I felt it was very important at that point because he gave me a chance, or just like was, he thought I was worth talking to at all at that point. I was like, cool, I want to hear more from you, so I better understand what this all really means to people like you. And that's where I began. So if you get banned, yeah, reevaluate and kind of work backwards from how you feel and why to what causes that, and then address it. And also talk to those who it affects, because if your comeback is it's just a word, or get over it, or I don't know whatever pivot you can think of here, then I think it's important to understand, a little bit more than just, the world revolving around you. The earth is at the center of the universe, and neither are you. So reevaluate the perspective here is what I would say.
Damn, Trihex is over here being a little too mature for us. Very mature way to handle that.
Is that the boring answer? Should I give it the
No, that was a really good answer. I'm here for it. Also, I noticed some people mentioned like it can be difficult for them to examine themselves in that way. I know that I have had that struggle where I've done something and you end up some of us end up dealing with guilt. We didn't want to be that way. But the thing that's incredible, and I think that we see in Trihex right here, is you are not your actions. You can fucking change your actions. You might have done something that hurt people, but you can move on from that, and you can apologize, and you can even here Trihex is having this conversation and trying to help other people through giving advice on how to move forward and not do these things and talk about the impact. And you can make something good out of it. We would have liked to avoided it in the first place, but if you can't, you can do better, and you can move forward to help others do better. And that's the incredible part about it, in my opinion.
No, you're completely right. And there's definitely there's actually some more advice here now I'm thinking about it here. So a couple things here when it comes to, I feel like people have a lot of assumptions in the functionality of apologies. You can apologize. You can apologize sincerely. You're not obligated to be forgiven by the party. Because remember, you're doing it for yourself. The bonus would be, you're doing it for yourself in a reforming of behavior because you've reflected on your actions. But the bonus is that person would forgive you and give you another chance. They're not obligated to do so. And if you're doing it only for the bonus, then there's some insincerity in your apology, I would think, in your motive for the apology. It should be in your interest, but it shouldn't be. You should be doing it for yourself. I would, in my opinion. And then, crap, what's the other thing here too? I'm sorry. It's like I remember I'm going to explain something and I forget where I was going with it after I'm done explaining it. And don't dwell. It's very easy to dwell on the wrongdoing you did. And I think that goes for a lot of things for a lot of people. The dwelling on the mistake, living in the past. worrying about things you can't change. You can't change what you did. It's already in the past. You can't undo communication. Communication exists in a one-sided road of like, the timeline. It's always being written in ink. I can only try to what's the word here? Like react to what I did. I can't undo the action, or I'm repairing from the consequence of whatever I did. So if you're going to live in the past and cause unneeded stress in that regard, do know that when you live in the past, or when you're worrying about things that have already happened that you can't change for any reason, then ultimately you're not in the present. You're stuck in the past. And the thing is, the earth will keep on spinning in the present while you live in the past, dwelling over the thing. You can either come back to the present and start working on the proactive things you can do to like remedy the situation, or just be a better person, or you can dwell in the past forever and forever remain stagnant. That's kind of like a hit them pretty hard, while they're down kind of thing. But like, I've been there too many times to count, and had to have my own girlfriend tell me, hey, look, you're living in the past. You gotta let it go. You gotta move on. So I don't know. Some people might want to hear that. I don't know, but like, that's like I've been there. Trust me, it sucks. I wish I could. Sometimes I wish I could just like spend a week, just like, not worrying about it. I don't know. I find that particularly when it comes to like dealing with sadness, the ultimate provoking of change is, I think, being sad. And there were many days when I was like super down, super stressed out, super, I don't know, whatever, depressed. I didn't want to wake up. I was like, I'm going to sleep in as long as possible so that I have as little of a day to deal with. I don't want to deal with these thoughts. I just want to like sleep. And I don't even look forward to waking up today, because today's going to suck ass. And yeah, I realize whenever I get in that mode, whenever I'm looking forward to not waking up, that's a bad sign. That's a sign I'm in that mode of like dwelling in the past, and I'm not eager to fix it. I should only be in that mode if there's nothing I can do to fix it. 0% chance that I can do any 0% impact on myself and the world around me to better things, which is not the case. Obviously, you can always better everything around you and with you. So, relatively speaking here. So
yeah. I just thank you for being so open and talking so sincerely about that, because I feel like not only I relate to that sometimes, but it definitely looks like chat also relates that sometimes you're in that mode and it's really hard to deal with. So thank you. I did want to move over to...
Sure, yeah, whatever. I got all the time in the world. I got the salad. The salad is an absolute banger right now.
Are you getting enough to eat? Like, do you need a moment?
No, we're good. This is good.
Okay. So, I did want to talk a little bit about the effects of tokenism on Twitch. So typically people think of tokenism in TV shows or on maybe Twitch panels, right? But tokenism being, I'm not explaining this to you so much as a few people in chat who may not be super familiar. Tokenism
please do.
Yeah, being when we have a minority or a small group of a small number of minorities in an area, and they then become kind of tokens. It's not real representation. It's more of, we have some of this group here. We have the appearance. This ends up like in workplaces, it puts additional pressure on them. They are representing their whole group. And this is something I personally struggle with because I feel like I need to have, there's not a lot of non-binary people on Twitch. There are a few, and I'm grateful for them. But I end up feeling like I have to be super on top of trans rights. My opinion on trans rights has to be very tight. I need to definitely make sure that I speak out on any transphobia. I can't let it slide because I become the voice of non-binary people in my chat, right? And there's a lot of pressure with that, on top of the pressure of not having other non-binary people if I'm in perhaps a friend group, right? I go to TwitchCon and there's a bunch of lefties there, and I'm nervous about correcting all my pronouns because I'm speaking alone on this. And I risk, if they don't accept that, ostracization from that group. So there are pressures on both sides there. I was wondering, have you felt like you have had any of these pressures on Twitch in any groups at all?
Yes. Oh my God. Absolutely. I'm laughing because it's like so comically
Yeah.
obvious that yeah, for me I have.
Yeah.
Um if I have lost count how many times I'm the only black person on Scuff Podcast, for example, and we're talking about N-word usage, whether it
Mm.
be because Drake said the N-word while singing a Drake song, context one, or X streamer said N-word and didn't get banned for it, context two. X streamer said the N-word and did get banned for it, escalating the situation further, context three. Or just in general, hey, your emote's racist. How you deal with that? Context four. And all those times have all happened multiple times, more than twice. And I've been the only black person on said podcast while this was going on. So there was a lot of eyes on me. And the hard part there is that like my experience with it is not even representative of the average black or POC on Twitch. So I have to like and of course, what do they want? They want a quick clickbaitable answer. I say the audience, right? And
Mm-hmm.
whenever you give them this like nuanced, elaborate thing about me versus the average POC on Twitch versus the contexts that are being applied here and the assumptions being made about those contexts, it's like I feel like I'll lose a lot of them like in the first like 2 minutes of me explain the whole thing because they just want to good or bad, and it's like, well, it's
Yeah.
complicated, man, because we're talking about the most contextualized racial slur in American English here. I mean, there's a lot to go into there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely feel that. I feel I have felt that since 2017. Ever since like a Taco article came out and I saw how many clicks I was getting and how many people were just like, whoa, dude, wow, okay. Because my take was like radical in that like Tryhard's not racist because there's nothing. It's not like it's exaggerated lips or like a clown nose or whatever. It's just it's just me making a very awkward smile, very distinctive smile. And I had to like elaborate, defend that, and really bring the conversation to the power of accountability of individual users on a massive communication platform like Twitch, like Twitter, like Facebook, like any medium on the internet here. So making that conversation about that and having to acknowledge the uncomfortable reality of like what the whole thing currently is. Yeah, probably people have to reflect really hard on it because it's like, in the Kotaku article, I literally stated that like, hey, well, look, you all can agree that the eggplant emoji and the peach emoji are just emoji depicting fruit or vegetables, whichever the eggplant actually is. But you all know what you think of when you see those two things, obviously. So there's connotations and there's contextualities to the uses of both those things there, and you're aware of that. But you don't want to, if you had a problem with sexual explicit content, you wouldn't ban those two, I would think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, if we apply the same logic here to Tryhard, you understand that it really goes back to the individual accountability of the user, as far as like a global enforcement of whatever the use of these things. So I bring that into play in the Kotaku article, and ever since then is whenever I saw that I became like bigger than just me. It's like, it wasn't just Tryhex's opinion. It was people heard it as like, okay, Tryhex's opinion is the correct opinion for all black people to have, which I thought was kind of scary. And I tried to deter as much as I can from that because ultimately I don't think I'm experiencing what most are experiencing in regards to racial stuff and POC treatment on Twitch. But I will elaborate here further that I really saw the power of my reach because do you remember when there was remember when PUBG was big? Player Unknown Battlegrounds? The video game?
Vaguely, yeah.
So whenever that game was popular, whenever you'd win, it was the phrase on the screen that would pop up whenever you win the Battle Royale games.
It was what?
Twitch,
I'm sorry, you cut out there.
I'm sorry. Whenever you win the Battle Royale game, it would say chicken, I'm sorry, winner, chicken dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you win the game, winner, chicken dinner would happen. And there was a promotion 2018 or 2017, I think, where very briefly there was a KFC chicken bucket that was a global emote because PUBG was popular and KFC bought sponsored emote slot on Twitch. So the KFC chicken bucket was an emote during this to celebrate, winner chicken dinner, which in itself is fine. But obviously, combine this with like all the other shit, it was used for racist dog whistles nonstop.
Yeah.
Now here's the worst part here. Okay, what if I told you that in the same month, if I recall correctly here, Snickers had the candy bar had a global emote too for promotional reasons. So you had I forgot what it was though. It was like Snickers something, but obviously you can guess where that goes here, right? You got Snickers global emote, you got the KFC bucket of chicken together at the same time on as global emotes on the platform. Holy shit, what happened there? And
Wait, I actually am not familiar with that. I totally saw the chicken dinner. I saw where that was going. But what about Snickers? I'm not familiar with that.
Does anyone remember actually? I forget. Okay, so it was the Snickers like font face with like the iconic font with the blue lettering against the white background embedded around like another border or whatever. I think it said boom. But I don't know. Either way, though, like people knew that it was like a connotation for the title of the candy bar, Snickers. So it'd be like where all the dirty, and it would be like the emoji, and then people would just like interpret it as like the N-word hard R, and it's like where all the dirty Snickers at, essentially. And it was a lot of that very quick, and then you add in the combo with the chicken bucket, and you're like, okay, well, this is that you probably didn't know about it because the Snickers bar emote was like gone in like less than 48 hours. That came and went real quick. The KFC one was around for maybe about a week or so, but when the two were together for 2 days, it was like insane. Because I had people in my chat blow me up like, yo, what's your opinion on this here? So my initial reaction was like, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was somebody's sub emote, and I was like, Twitch, what are you doing? Like, how are you so unaware? And the thing is, my reaction got like 60K likes on the clip. It went viral on LSF or whatever. Like my reaction, which wasn't even like I felt that like I wasn't preparing to make a definitive statement here. Actually, I was playing a really boring Kirby game. I had like 500 viewers whenever I did it, so it was like relatively low for my view count at that time. But that clip got so many views because it was my reaction to those two emotes live, my real reaction. Yeah. And so that it was at that point I realized my reach as far as like this tokenism of like Black representation on Twitch. Yeah. And I had to like really step back and evaluate the whole thing and be like, okay, well, wow, I need to like really I gotta polish my stance on N-word, as well as, or I say polish, I mean like polish my explanation and definitive stances on that word, because I don't know, I imagine Summer's going to say that, oh well, you should just, if I say anything other than my emote is bad, I want to get rid of it, I'm racist. So I have to come at that perspective here. Like the worst person, or the person with the most assumptive, problematic perspective will say that if I am not for removing Tryhard, I am therefore enabling racism. So I have to convince that person that's not the case here. And if I convince them, then by default, everyone else will be, on my side as well, I would hope. So that's when I learned the tokenism aspect of mine here, where I have to like do better on all that. So in that regard, yeah, I don't use hard R, and I don't try not to even use the A, because I know if I like use A a certain way, it could get clipped because people are waiting me to say it. I'm faking it, say it, whatever. So I never really abused it excessively in the first place, but now I'm like super aware of if I'm going to use it, it needs to be for a definitive reason. Like, for example, the last time I used I used it like deliberately, I can recall here, would actually be 2018. For 2018, for February, there was a Black broadcaster awareness initiative at Twitch, and I was like one of the people or whatever that they chose for it. And so what I did, actually, it's actually funny here. What I prepared was this whole thing on introvert versus extrovert racism. I did a whole, I like kind of like you, I did a huge like Tryhard thing where I was gonna I had like notes and everything about this whole thing here. And what I mean by that is like it was like a 2-hour thing I prepared, and I was showing people who used hard R in private around their friends And you can see, in these leaked Snapchats, in these like documented videos, and these awkward encounters in public with like, very bigoted people. And and you would see them again. I think I'm an example here. There was an Alabama sorority where this girl came from New Jersey, recently got sent to the University of Alabama. She goes there and she has in her Snapchats all recorded from somebody else, and it's her just like saying, "Fuck," N-word hard R's, and like fuck them, cause they ain't us, and stuff like that. It's like really, really bigoted stuff. But it's her surrounded by all of her white friends, and it's like this is a learned behavior. You don't do this in a vacuum, because I mean, look how much enabling is going on right now. Like it's all of her friends all around there not saying anything while she's recording it, and it's like that to me was incredibly jarring. So I went into like examples of that and what's going through the psyche of that, and how like I can reinforce my own world views. That when I moved to Louisiana in 2001 and I saw racial behavior in a way I haven't seen before, because I saw like in the schools, it was 4 groups: black girls, black guys, white girls, white guys. And they were doing on their own. So like they're learning from their parents how to behave like that. Like it was crazy. Coming from the rich, diverse, multicultural Central Florida and Orlando to coming to rural Louisiana, night and day difference. And I saw that in middle school, and I'm like, this is weird. There's like 4 big groups here, and they're racially and genderly divided. And this is like really jarring to see right now. And again, it's like, what do I conclude here other than they're getting from the parents? And as an adult now, I can tell you, yeah, too here. They get from the parents. It's the parents reinforcing to them, because I've seen it firsthand, because I've had to deal with it myself as well, which we can get into if you want to here. But yeah. Well, anyway, so the point is, the whole thing is that, yeah, I said I was quoting what they were saying and citing their examples of uses of the word. So I said hard R quite a few times in that thing, but it was purely just to like, show the explicitness of that word, because whenever, even made me uncomfortable, honestly, whenever I was saying, I was like, you shit. So yeah, that's that huge word salad there is my experience with tokenism.
Yeah. Frick, you went through so much there. I wanted to, I had a few questions. I should like, no. I had a few questions going into that though.
I'm sorry. I should stop at some point.
No, you're fine. Well, okay. I can think of the first one I had, and I really wanted to go into, like, as far as dealing with tokenism, I have a few things I have thought of, and I'm more actively putting into play here soon. But what are ways we could reduce that discomfort of the pressures of tokenism? I do eventually want to come back to a few other questions, but I really did want to tackle, like, how do we reduce this pressure on minorities? Because it is additional pressure, right? You feel like you have to go and you have to have your brushed up views on particular topics, because everyone's waiting for the black guy's take on it, and your black guy take has to be the take, and it becomes the take, and you have to defend it. So like you have that additional pressure in at least that. How do we work on this problem? What do you think?
This is actually the first one I don't have a great answer for you. I don't know. I'm still dealing with that, actually. I don't really know how to my forehead answer, LOL, just do this, is like increase representation to normalize the depiction of those people or persons. But like forehead, just do that, right? I don't know. I'm still working on myself here. I just have to do an exhausting explanation that, hey, look, I'm one black person. I am a very atypical black person on Twitch, because I have a lot of context with the whole Tryhard mode and being here for a long ass time. If you're a day one black streamer in 2019, it's a very different ball game than for me by comparison.
Yeah.
I also one thing I will say I'm proud of here, though, and this is probably another reason why it's not as bad of a problem for me, is that like I never used my blackness to be exploited for my growth. Like I never marketed myself as like, the most popular black streamer, or marketed myself as like, the black gamer who like did things because of being black, whatever. I don't know. I never brought my race into the relevance of like my growth on Twitch. It was always, again, I really did until I had to. Again, until the Kotaku article happened, I never really, propelled myself to like being the ambassador of all black people on Twitch. I had to, because if I didn't do anything, then it was I couldn't control the conversation at that point, right? But yeah, until then, it was always, it was my gaming skill. It was like, yeah, my skill as a gamer. I can, I don't know, just something about it kind of hits me a little bit weird whenever it's like you can't control your race. So it's
Mhm.
like the first impression someone's going to have of you may be rooted in some assumptions about people within the race that you're in that you didn't pick to be in, right? Which is bigoted of them to an extent, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it affects first impression here. So whenever you're on the internet and you're using like avatar-based mediums where you can opt to not reveal your gender, you're opt to, or even have one at all. You can opt to not make your race relevant to how people interpret and perceive you. I don't know. It's just again a very crude observation here is that a very crude observation here is that you could choose to not do that. So whenever you do choose to do it, yeah, you might be just enabling some problematic situations on your own hand if you're not ready to deal with them. There are consequences to dealing with that. So, but I don't think I'm that smart though. I didn't think of it to that extent. It's just kind of how it played out though. But yeah, I never like made my race a defining trait about who I am or what I do and why I do it. It is now because it had to be, but that wasn't that case before, though.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because when I hear you say that, all of the, like, I don't know, maybe it's just my experience, but I end up recognizing that the people around and people coming to me for my opinion on trans issues, and well, I guess going through my transition live, like that also plays into it, but that then makes that part of my identity as a streamer. And when I want to move into other topics, I have to answer like, people don't know, and I guess it's hard to compare some of these things because transness is obviously very different from being black in so many ways, but it does become like, I guess, kind of difficult for some people who want it to not be a factor because you can't, as you said, like you don't choose your race, but still it becomes a factor in your emote then becoming the racist dog whistle because you're black. Like, it's just super unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know how to. All we can do is try to normalize it. Really, that's all I can think of right now.
Yeah. And talking about
Right.
it, I think, which you talked about already, which I think is helpful. Yeah, I'm going the route of I just want to boost other people who are also talking about issues of trans rights, and I just want to boost other minorities in a way like, but that does come to, well, is this because they're black? And I'm like, no, I think talking about racial issues is important. And part of bringing that together and having that conversation, yeah, you also get the added benefit of more eyes on those people. And I think that's important. So actively fighting it is all I really have. And that's what I'm trying to do. But I'm always curious if you ever have additional ideas, because that's what I'm doing. I'm here to fight the additional struggles put on minorities, keeping them out of these places and making it more difficult to be in these spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a complicated issue to tackle, and it's gonna be an uphill one for sure. I wish I had. I'm sorry. This is actually the one I wish I had more to talk about here. I completely hear you. I don't really know what we can do immediately to remedy this, but I can just imagine how many people have to deal with this kind of thing. If you're in I don't know, if you're like coming to, I don't even know, like you're coming to Florida and you're like an Alaskan native, right? Like, boom, tokenism right there. Everyone's gonna wonder, like, what do you do? What do you ride it? Do you ride like a deer to Walmart or whatever? Do you even have a Walmart out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, ugh, you know what I mean? Like, and all the accountability is on you. Like you're so little bit's in your control, I feel, which feels frustrating.
Absolutely. The last thing I kind of wanted to cover here, because it was a kind of difficult topic and I got to hear a little bit of your perspective on it, but we know we had a recent conversation. I don't know, maybe it's not super recent anymore. I'm glad we gave it some time to blow over, but N-word in private conversation. I wanted to hear, like, what are the pressures you faced as the the black friend, if you will, dealing with that conversation, and what were some of your feelings around that?
Ooh, wow. Yeah. Well, there was a lot going on between me at that time. I would say my initial reaction. So well, let's go for a couple things. I got to clarify first. I got to clarify that to me, in my interpretation here, that N word with a hard R and N word with an A are two different words. One, I feel is the most contextualized racial slur in American modern English. There's a lot to unpack there. I think me and you both can agree on that.
I have a potentially silly question. When you say the most contextualized, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Can you explain that a little?
In that most context, I guess perhaps most history rich.
Okay.
There's just okay, because I don't want to use like the terminology like it's the most offensive slur because I don't want to make it like a holier than thou thing, but most contextualized in its legitimacy as a slur.
Okay, I've got you.
There's a lot of dehumanization, the whole the international slave trade, the Civil War, slavery, segregation, Civil Rights Act, modern racism, etc. There's a lot that you can cite as like, yeah, this is legitimately a slur for a fuckload of reasons.
Fuck ton of reasons, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean by contextualized.
Thank you.
So for example, right, like we can look at any slur you want, but when you look at N-word, hard R, it's like pick a century. Which century do you want to talk about its usage as a problematic thing? And it's like there's quite a few centuries you can pick from, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what I mean by that anyway. But I'm happy you asked that. I'm glad I was able to elaborate on that for you as well.
Thank you.
But yeah, they're two different words for me. One, again, as I said, is a really, really bad slur for a billion reasons. The other, I typically see used as empowerment by a lot of people, both Black and non-Black, and also being used as a term of endearment, again, by both Black and non-Black, and essentially getting repossessed by, I guess, most famously through like hip hop and rap songs. But just I've seen it used like in so many positive ways now, anecdotally, and I'm sure if I had the citation here, empirically. But so yeah, there are two different words for me there. So I wouldn't freak out I don't freak out if like one person uses like N with an A privately or even around me, because I'm like, because again, it's like it's been normalized. We have many famous examples here. You got people who say the word in a rap song reciting of the lyrics. You got I hate to bring up names here, but I mean it's just like the universal example here. But you got Ninja singing a Drake song and saying it, and that to me was like a non-issue. People again, because I was asked before here, hey, what's your opinion whenever Ninja said it? And I'm like, it was just a rap song. He was saying the lyrics, and he obviously doesn't belittle Black people. He obviously it was being used to empower or whatever, and it was obviously not in a pejorative manner to like fuck someone over. It wasn't comparing. The problem is people are not computing context here. There is a huge difference. I hate that I have to name drop here, but it makes the examples really grounded for those who aren't getting it. There's a huge difference between Ninja saying it with an A to a Drake song singing along while playing Fortnite, then PewDiePie throwing out the hard R pejoratively at someone, intending such over a direct consequence with having a heated gamer moment at the bridge. Those are two, but people think the two are the same thing, and it's not, or the same intensity, and they're not. And it's like they're different, they're completely different, and we can get into why they're different, but that requires us to have to examine the context of what two things are happening there. So so yeah, that's so I wanted to get that out the way here real quick here, that hard R and A, and that I react to both of those in a very, very different manner. And some people might be upset at that, might think that, oh, well, both are bad or whatever. And I mean, sure, you can interpret it as such. I'm telling you where I stand. And I've actually never, I've never policed anyone's speech before or anything like that. But I was put in a very circumstantial, uncomfortable position for the first time in my life this past 2 months in October. That's because directly of the relationship I had with Steven, or have with Steven. That was a huge difference there. Again, context here is key. People want a black or white answer, but again, for those two differences here to get into why PewDiePie and Ninja's things here are different, requires examining the context. Just like how here my stances I've said so far, my principles about N-word, hard R, and A are different. May be violated or appear hypocritical when I'm going into how I reacted around Destiny. It requires examining the context here. So I hope everyone who's listening right now or would be listening would say, okay, I'm open to hearing your elaboration because communication and slurs should be complicated, yo. So let's go with that one then. Now, would you mind repeating the question for me? So I had to give that
Yeah,
framing there before we
so
continue.
it's more just surrounding like the pressures you faced in this. I was going a little bit to the tokenism question, but it doesn't necessarily have to connect because these questions are more focused on like getting your voice and your perspective out there. What are the difficulties you faced in dealing with that situation? How was it taken? Do you feel like it was represented well? Like you got heard? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, versus I guess how my thoughts around this. There's lots to unpack here, I would say. The beginning is that I guess just to elaborate here, I was coming at it from an empathy angle. Whenever I'm trying to think here, do I recite the situation because that's gonna be like a really long thing, or do I just like you're asking me how I feel about it? I'm trying to think of how I best respond to that. I guess how I feel is privacy serves a function, right? So I guess the question is, how do I feel about the inevitability that people use slurs in private? Is that kind of where we're going with this whole thing here?
I was more focused on, do you feel like there were particular struggles because it's specifically a racial slur? You're having to respond to it as like a black guy, right? So I've had this moment where I had my friend on and they said a slur against trans people. And suddenly I'm in public and I'm having to respond to that. And I'm getting pulled two different directions. But I don't know what your experience is. Maybe you have something totally different, right?
Okay. So in that regard, it was very unique. I've never had to deal with this before. My entire time dealing with this has always been pretty static and it resolves in one way. That it doesn't bother me because I don't think of myself as N-word hard R because I don't condone myself that way. So whenever I'm insulted as such by people I don't know, quite frankly, against strangers in my chat because I'm just making a throwaway account, I'm able to dissociate from that in any legitimate manner and is like, okay, you're a bigot and or you're trying to get attention and or you're just I don't know, whatever, jealous because you don't have my attention legitimately. So you're trying to get it in a disingenuous manner. And I write it off as like bullshit and move on. So it's always been like that. Like it's never like, I've never been called hard R or a slur that really hits me emotionally IRL before. I've been treated certain ways from my race, which we can get to some like anecdotal stories about, racist treatment of Black people, including myself in the South here. I can get into some of those if you want to hear about them.
Oh, I want to cover that sometime.
Maybe
not today, but
if
right? you, yeah.
Yeah, because it would derail big time. So yeah, it's more that these are things I've had before, but I've never had a slur thrown at me and have it really emotionally grip me before. So this was all very new to me when the incident occurred to me in October because it was very public. It happened on the Raj Royale, and honestly, my Blackness was a factor in that, like it was for you, comparatively. If a white person heard what I heard and did nothing about it, it would resolve a status quo. There would be any onus put on their actions or lack of action. But because of my Blackness, because I'm Trihex with the Tryhard emote, yeah, like if I did nothing or if I react as nothing, yeah, something bad happens. If I do react to it and escalate the situation to officially a conflict, then yeah, things do happen. And it was like it was stressful because it was like there was no way out. It was either conflict and confrontation or consequence and confrontation. There was just no way out. I had to do something here, and something beyond my control, my race, caused the situation to become an A or B thing. And I feel like it's a uniquely, I don't know, whatever minority or whatever situation to be in. It sucks. It sucked, and it's super stressful. And I'm prepared for a lot of things. I've gone through a lot of experiences, but this was something I had never dealt with before, and again, the key factors here is it all happened publicly. It wasn't even like a private manner between me and a coworker. It was all on the Raj Rael. It was all public. So, I was emotionally rational, X massive audience, X communication can't be undone. So yeah, it was the Titanic's taking the iceberg, and we're gonna find out what happens here.
Yeah. No, I 100% feel that, because it's just, you're like, well, whatever I say here, it's there, and so many people are seeing it, and it's not going away. I totally feel you on that. Okay, thank you for your thoughts. Thank you. I have one last thing. For some reason in my notes, and I know, like, chat, bear with me here. I know this is because we had a quick conversation kind of figuring out what is okay to touch and what is not okay to touch. And for some reason in my notes, I just have totally alone, is Trihex gay? And this is not something I would write for no reason. So Trihex, why is this here?
Because you were curious. No. So I'll tell you why. We were talking in our pre-planning phase, and I told you that if you have you ever done like a Google autofill exercise before?
Oh, this is what it is. I remember. Yeah.
Where you put like, is Eva Unalove, and then you see what the fill in is, right? So you put is Trihex in the autofill. I want to say the first autofill, and it might have changed now because this is like from like forever ago, like 2015, I think at latest here. Is Trihex gay? And I was like, interesting, because like I feel like I've never put on a deliberate persona to be like sexually ambiguous, but a lot of people, I guess, had wanted to conclusively know, is he gay? Maybe because I used to play shirtless, like I used to like back in the Gap, I would it's actually a pretty cool story here. Whenever I would play Yoshi's Island or my speedrun games, like we're talking like back in like 2012, like young Twitch, you feel me? I would if I got donations for $20, I would like pretend I go Super Saiyan, and like I'd put on like the Goku hair as an overlay over my afro, and then I would play shirtless and pretend that I was playing better somehow. I really wasn't, but whatever. And then what happened though is like after a while, I started getting objectified, actually. Started getting these people who I didn't recognize coming in my chat, who are no longer lurking there and I'm posting, and they were like, hey, what does he get half naked? And I was like, yeah, it was never shirtless. It was always half naked.
Half naked. Ooh.
Half naked. Yeah, it was getting a little weird, champ. And I was like, you know what? I no longer want to do this now, because I feel like I'm filling someone's spank bank, and that's not really what I was out here to do.
I was just going Super Saiyan, friends.
Yeah, that's all I was doing. So I kind of retired that. So maybe that was maybe that could be interpreted as me trying to like, maybe it's the desire to strip on stream. Maybe if people thought I was being promiscuous, I wasn't. Maybe I don't know. You have to ask. Maybe I don't know. Ask my chat here. They're probably here right now. Chat. Why did people think I was gay?
Yeah,
probably,
chat.
I'm not gay, but I'm not like, I'm not obviously not anti-gay here, but I thought that was interesting. Google autofill, and I didn't really know what to make of it, really, because they wanted you to be gay. Maybe the lisp. Okay. Ooh. We're hitting the hard hitting question. So why the lisp? The lisp. Okay, so if you actually how much time do we have here? Because it's actually a pretty crazy story.
We have time. I didn't even know.
Okay.
I honestly am not. I didn't realize you had. Do you have a lisp?
Yeah, sort of. I try my best to minimize it. I have two bad speech impediments here. I talk too fast whenever I'm emotionally excited, and my pronunciation of S's is typically bad. I stick my tongue out sometimes whenever I use the S pronunciation.
Okay.
Sometimes. I've gotten better at it, but like it's I have to like think about it. It's not like naturally to just like pronounce it lisp free. It's the gap in the teeth. Also, yeah, that too probably doesn't help either. I can't whistle for shit. Like my whistling is like non-existent. I also can't blow bubblegum bubbles worth a fuck at all. I can't get it at all. Being a public figure who's not hyper masculine probably makes it sort of inevitable. People will think that, especially if you act vulnerable sometimes.
Yeah, literally when I thought
Yeah.
that, I'm gonna say, like, when I heard you talking about not wanting to wake up in the morning, I didn't think, oh, you're gay, but I knew some people wouldn't see that as masculine. And I almost pointed it out, but I'm like, we're not here to talk about masculinity right now. I'll pull you on that some other time.
Hmm.
But absolutely, I could see people being like, oh, he's less masculine, therefore he must be gay because they have that association.
Mm, you're not alpha, therefore you're totally vulnerable and usually a receiver. I don't know whatever I'm thinking, right? But no. So the listing, what happened there is this is actually one of the crazy things about the whole thing. So according to my parents, I had a babysitter when I was like 3 years old, and the babysitter I had was abusive, in their words. They had my mother had found a cigarette bud shaped burn mark on my back when giving me a bath when I was younger, and she suspected that the babysitter I had was the one doing it to me. She also noticed that I was now ter- terrified of the dark. I used to be
Mm.
passive on, having, going to sleep at night with no lights on. And then suddenly one night I was like terrified of the dark, and I didn't want to. I screamed until we had like the lights on, or I had like a night light, or had a TV on, or whatever. That was a sudden change when I was like 2 years old or older. And she's like, okay, he's changing now, and I'm not sure what to make of it. So they go to the babysitter, they confront the babysitter, and she denies everything. But ultimately, they found out later on that apparently I would cry at the babysitter's house, again, while they were both working here, while I was 2 years old, and the babysitter would just kind of throw me in the closet because I was crying too often. Again, I don't have a lot of citation this whole thing here, but this is like what my mom told me.
Mm.
Like way later in life, this big event happened, and whenever this happened, I stopped speaking. If I recall
Mm.
correctly, children start speaking around what towards the end of the 2 years old, 2 year olds or whatever, and they start like it starts speaking more and more towards age 4. Well, I stopped speaking. I for like a very long period, like 9 months, didn't speak. And my speech development was regressing and very regressing well, and getting very poor. I was stuttering. I couldn't pronounce things really well. And by the time I was in kindergarten, I had to take intensive speech therapy. It was really bad. What I do remember by kindergarten is that I couldn't say the word three. I would try to say three, and I would say tree,
Mm.
tree, tree. Like I couldn't do it. It was like we had to go into so I had to go to speech therapy at my elementary school, and I had to get like schooled on how to say things all the time, and like being taught to slow down and say everything correctly with lots of diction. That way you have control over what you're saying. And it's like
Mm.
I can think way faster than that, but I have to like they train you to just like kind of like die inside and just do it like that, because if otherwise you would just do it bad. And this carried over a very long period of time. I always had the list problem, and I didn't work on it until I became a waiter. When I became a waiter and had to like publicly speak in front of tables like all the time, I then had like a desire to really polish it, because my confidence of delivery was bad. So
Mm.
I wasn't engaging. I could perhaps make up a insightful presentation over what today's specials are, or advocate for you to order my favorite meal that we have at this restaurant here. But if my confidence is low because my stuttering and my slurring and delivery of my words is bad, then you're not going to be engaged, I would think, right? Because it's eye contact, the presentation, charisma, all that garbage. So I made a deliberate effort to work on it at that point, and coincidentally, the working on it there, I ended up being a waiter for 8 years, and then I was a Twitch broadcaster for another 8 after. So here we are now, where I'm a lot better at it. Hopefully, most people can't notice it, but occasionally I do get excited, so I just like start. If I heat in the moment, I'm probably letting it loose a little bit, but I do have to think about what I'm saying. And I will admit, your subtitle thingy is making me very considerate of always slowing it down to make sure that it can pick up what I'm saying correctly.
I was laughing earlier because you said peach emoji and eggplant emoji.
Oh, it actually does it. Oh wow, I didn't notice that.
Too bad it doesn't do Tryhard or something. Like it doesn't have those, but it's got some of them. So that makes me really happy. But no, thank you for going into that. That's holy cow. I'm so
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, first off, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was a lot. I apologize.
No, I'm thanking you. This is gonna be a problem. We're gonna have this problem where like, thank you. You're like, I'm sorry. No, thank you for being vulnerable. I really appreciate that. I know for some streamers that's very hard, but I appreciate you coming here and chatting with us about these topics and being so vulnerable and going into that. So thank you.
Well, I feel like a lot of people. I feel like if more people did that, it would normalize that. The only real normal thing is really nothing here. I think everyone has some crazy stuff in their childhood. Yeah. Or whatever, like, you know, the way you are right now all happened from a sequence of events, and you have to, if you bother to recall them back, some of them do seem quite atypical, I would think.
Absolutely, I hear you on that. Okay, I do want to,
especially for you. I mean, I can only imagine what you had to go through throughout puberty, high school, middle school, social environments, and then some coworkers. Like, I'm sure you have a whole marathon novel about the whole thing.
Yeah, just bullshit we could talk about. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I know we got some questions. I want to make sure chat gets their questions answered. Someone DM'd me. They said they DM'd me the questions. Prax, where did you put the questions? I don't put it on Discord. I can't do it. Trihex is on Discord, so we'll flip over. But if you like whispered me on Twitch, that would work out. Sorry about some of the technical difficulties, Trihex. We're getting it all like figured out slowly but surely.
Let me tell you why you're smart. You are smart because you didn't put a strict time frame on this, so you can't fail.
Yeah,
you can't fail what there wasn't like a threshold to. So it's cool. It was all planned. This is an unplanned. This is a planned, unplanned intermission. Tinkle, or grab a snack, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. If you aren't having technical difficulties, are you really streaming? No, absolutely not.
Discord's not like farting hardcore during production, and only production, like it works fine when you're not trying to do this whole, you know, live podcasting thing. Yeah, are you really a podcaster?
True. Okay, we do have them. Danny Too Good wanted to know, do you think Trihex Eva, do you think having more of a Facebook Live approach where you have to tie your real name identity to your online identity would help some of the issues because it's not as I assume you mean like we have our identities attached, right? So we're not hiding behind anything. Trihex covered this in the video that we opened with. If you want to go into it, and then I'll give my take.
Sure. I think that would. So the problem is that there is problematic realms of communication on the internet because there is not accountability to individual users. When you're ever using an avatar-based medium like Twitch or Twitter or anything that's not essentially Facebook, if you were to remove this avatar filter or boundary and make it literally 1-1 to everyone's accountable real name of what they're saying and doing, that would deter some problematic rhetoric, I would imagine. But at the same time, it would create, in my opinion, more problems than solutions. I think it's a situation where we're all too fixated on the negatives of avatar communication and not also the positives here. You are getting those who will tell you genuinely how they feel and what they and just communicate just honestly and candidly because they have the power of the avatar behind them to not feel completely committed and stigmatized for what they're saying and doing, especially if they're the first one to openly do so for any particular thing.
Absolutely.
So I can go into it more from there, but we'll just start right there and then I'm gonna do a better job as like being your guest, not just monologue my way through the whole thing. So I encourage you to shut me up and step in now with your take.
I am so glad that you're on here. So thank you for doing the monologuing and giving us your thoughts, because a lot of the people here hear me rambling all the time. So change is nice. My view, I would just second that, because my first thought when I was watching Tryhex's video, and I started talking about this while we were going through the video, my first thought was trans people. So many trans people who can't be out but can live their gender identity online safely in a way that they could never do where they are currently, perhaps because they're closeted, because of their conservative family might throw them out, or they're in a very religious area that doesn't support trans people and would ostracize them. That's very important. So giving people community, and we have people that come to our community and are closeted and are so grateful to have that supportive community. It's incredible for those reasons. So that would go into, again, Trihex saying, what about the positives? We're only looking at the negatives. I do think that there are other ways to get accountability without it being tied to your identity, but that wouldn't be the approach I would take. That would be the most, or I'd say one of the most extreme, and it would do a lot of damage. Whereas I think maybe Twitch having a way to have you have one account and you can't make multiple throwaway accounts, that would be a totally different game. That would up the stakes dramatically while still having an avatar. Would that be too much? Would that be too little? I don't think it'd be too little, but I think there would be interest. It could be interesting to examine other ways to do this without outing people. That's my thoughts. I think there are pros.
This is spicy. I like that's actually an interesting thing here, because like, you know why I haven't considered it? Because I can't, because I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I haven't considered it because I'm like, well, how do you actually enforce that? How do you enforce definitively that someone can't make a throwaway account? Like, what do you do? Do you IP ban them and then just make a new IP? Or if you make it to tether the IP, then you just like, I don't know, VPN and just new account, new IP, and then what? Like, how do you like? I try to bound this in like a realistic engineering feat, and it's like, I don't know how you actually make someone be foolproof on not being able to make throwaway accounts.
No, I absolutely agree with you.
I don't know how to execute it.
So for me, I don't know shit about that, right? And so I'm always I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to go from the theoretical approach and then look over and say, hey, tech people, what are we doing here, right? Like, is this possible in any way, shape, or form? And if it isn't, that's why we have visionaries to try to figure it out, right? But then not only that, but you're talking about, okay, IP banning. Well, what about you're throwing all these words out, and I'm just like, I don't know if the typical Twitch user knows all this bullshit. Maybe I'm just boomer as fuck, right? But I think
the typical shitter will know about it. They know all about VPNs, yeah.
Okay.
Virtual private networks where they can yeah, they're not bound to.
Oh yeah, chat is like Eva. We all know. Okay, well, so that would be for me.
Well, it's cool though, because it means you've never been banned before. If you've been banned from places, you would know all about, okay, how they know I'm me. Oh, my IP address. Okay, well, can I change that? Oh, I can. VPNs do that. Okay, great. And they just, and then that's where they go.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to go from the more practical route. The problem with me is I always go from, well, not always, but I go from a theoretical route and then say, well, how could we work our technology, find a way to do this? And is it possible? Would it be too invasive,
I do not fault you 0% for that approach. I just happen to know this much about that particular thing. I think the best products and the best outcomes come from a combination of visionaries and imagineers. I was going to use like imagineers, that sounds better, but like those with imagination who are not bound to the realities of operation, and then you submit that proposal to the engineers and then ground it in reality. Like developing a car. You all right, there's all these rules for for safety regulations. You got to have rear view mirrors, you got to have turn signals. It's gotta be this big, this wide, whatever, right? And it's like whenever you remove all that crap, if you like want to make the Jetsons car, cool. Here's my concept Jetsons car, and then you tell the engineers to like make it road legal, right? So they have to like dumb it down hardcore. And I think those two halves there will lead to the an actuality.
Absolutely.
So like I take your idea though. I would have never thought of your idea because I was so busy grounded in the practicality of that. And IP banning is going to be is too stupid to figure out right now. So how are we going to really make it definitively one account per person forever?
Yeah.
Which if I were to give my 2 cents here, it's like you kind of need biometrics for this to really work out, and we're just like nowhere near that. It'd have to be like you'd have to have the filter of the barrier of entry be biometrics, whether it be a thumbprint or whatever, or an iris scan, and then that makes your account. Like I don't know how else you would be able to do otherwise in reality right now. But the problem there too is like, you know, if so I gave you the hypothetical here, right, where you can execute it, but then it's like loses money for Twitch. Twitch wants an absolutely zero barrier of entry to make an account here, because the more people are here, the more potential there are for people with money to spend to be here. And the culture of the mass people being here is intrinsic value to the platform. And that, you know, I'm already derailing this whole thing now, but you get the idea. So
No. And then I think once we get into where we're going down this hole, we step back and realize, well, we kind of just need to tackle the actual problem, which is racism. So we're back to fighting what we've been fighting while we want to do what we can to try to, or racism, transphobia, sexism, all the other isms, and just harassment and culture in general, changing our culture, which ends up being like, I do think I lean probably more towards anarchism. And so these things, like these barriers, I don't know if they really line up with my belief system, right? But it's also like, it's a complex issue. It's a complex issue. Thank you, Danny, for the question. I appreciate it. Patch says, Patch is asking the realest question that I was going to ask you. We're going to save it for last because it's very important. Okay?
Ooh. All right.
Whoop says, Eva, is there any wrongdoing a person shouldn't be allowed to move on from, even if they genuinely change? We'll open this question Trihex, what do you think? Is there any wrongdoing a person shouldn't be allowed to move on from, even if they genuinely change? Do you have...
So are you asking... I'm going to make sure I'm answering here. You're asking me, is there a thing that someone can do and they deserve to never be forgiven? Or is there a thing that a person does they should never be... what's the word here? Is that what you're asking, right? Like,
so it's
hypothetically an action someone can do to be never forgiven, and that be okay or tolerable?
I almost think you probably want to take it from both perspectives. I'm not sure. It's a question from chat from Great Whoop. So Whoop, if you're still here and you want to clarify, I would take it from like, when I answer this question, I'm going to take it from a societal perspective, right? Or almost like, I don't want to say cancel culture because I don't, but like, is there a thing?
Get really loose really quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a deep one, right? Because it's like, because I have to immediately go into the most extreme of things, right? Murder, rape, child porn. I have to immediately scenarios here to really to get to the core of my principles about the whole thing. And it's like, I don't know if I thought this all through really hardcore.
Do you want me to answer
generally,
first?
I'm team rehabilitation, not retribution. In terms of a grounded reality, I know that right now, death penalty usually costs us more than it saves in terms of economical output.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of it. And again, the fixation on retribution is like a really, really problematic, like short-sighted one in my opinion. So I would just say that most things can be forgiven, but or tolerable, but it's like the time, but the apology being accepted and forgiveness to be granted is not an obligation, and that could take time to be done. You should never apologize with the expectation that you will immediately be given okay, I forgive you. That might take years to do. That might take decades to do. You know, if you have if hypothetically you came out and then I'm sorry, I'm not to give you like I have no clue about your upbringing. You
Mhm.
just wanted to like throw out an example here, but like hypothetically, if you came out and your conservative father beat the shit out of you and physically abused you, that may take decades, if ever, to forgive and get over, and to even want to have another conversation with that person. So yeah, there are definitely. I would say that generally, yes, there's nothing I could think of where there's no retribution. But at the same time, here there is no obligation for forgiveness and acceptance, or acceptance of the forgiveness.
I am actually exactly where you are on this. I always
Oh,
say, like, I work my best to be, and I think it's pretty easy for me to work towards reform. Most of the time, if someone is removed from our community, for example, it's just because I think they are totally able to reform, but this isn't the place. And that's something that's really important to me, is that they do have places they can go to improve their behavior no matter what they've done. I don't believe that this goes into, I'm going into the death penalty just because you mentioned it. I'm hardcore against the death penalty. And the reason is I don't trust the state to enforce that, because I
right.
know how like racist their system is. But even then, one innocent person dying isn't worth it to me. I always want to be there to believe in people's ability to reform. I don't know what they grew up with. If that were the case with my dad, what has he gone through? And not that that excuses that, but I almost or not that he could have done nothing better, right? I gotta be really careful with this one. I'm gonna get in so much trouble right here. But I do think it's important to recognize, like, you don't know the full story, and it can be very difficult. And we don't, like, people do terrible things, and we don't have the backstory. We don't know what was going on. We don't know. The only person that can really know is them, and maybe the person, like, really close people, right? And it's just, it doesn't excuse their action. It never excuses that terrible action. It doesn't erase the impact. But I still am there saying, I hope that they have a path where they can improve. And so I don't want to ostracize anyone. I might not want to be around them, and I'm not saying anyone needs to be around them. No one needs to forgive them, but I still want them to have a path where they can improve as a person. And that's my hope. That's my hope. But does that mean I believe everyone can improve and will improve? No, I think sometimes we might be trying for people for the rest of their life and they will never improve. And that's the reality. But we can't tell the future. We don't know that as a solid fact in stone. So that's my stance, at least.
Yeah, and if I can elaborate, it's great by the way. But I'm glad we are pretty close on that actually. You brought up one point I wanted to definitely elaborate on, which was that you're right. Another reason I do oppose death penalty is because there are those who are mistakenly executed, and as long as that number is higher than 0%, I can't support it, because you put yourself in there, you put a loved one in there, it's just like, if this is really what, because if you can course correct, and if someone was mistakenly trialed over bigotry or racism from the 60s or whatever, there's a lot of wrongdoing to be undone, but at least there's something that can be done. When they're executed, it's done.
Yeah.
And it's a sad, grim reality, and that's terrible. It sucks. So as long as 1% or higher on wrong convicted people who are getting executed, I can't honestly endorse it. Next is the other point here that you were completely right. You were kind of hitting at, but that oftentimes those who bully typically were bullied themselves. So it's a toxic system, and you're right. The wrongdoings of one person in isolation could be bad, but maybe they were wrong done prior, and it's like it's a spiral of learned behavior or a coping mechanism that led to that happening. Again, not justifying it, just trying to explain it. The example that comes to mind right away here, it's not a pretty one, but the example that comes to mind here is, for example, Michael Jackson. You can look at the accusations that he had against him, But what you can't ignore is the upbringing of Papa Joe with Michael Jackson, that is most definitely contextually relevant to his entire sporadic life and life choices. So it's important to just keep all that in mind when you're examining that, for example. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I will admit, I glanced over to chat. I did want to acknowledge, thank you, Patch. I should let my mods do what they do. We don't talk about abortion in chat. Please be mindful of that. Thank you, Patch, for handling it, unless we're engaging it here. Thank you, Trihex. I do appreciate your thoughts on that. And
yeah, no problem.
I hear you.
Yeah, no. I actually, I have one thing I want to observe for your chat. Man, it's crazy. They get into like random, some deep topical stuff, like unprovoked. I'm like, oh, dang, okay, now y'all are on this right now. It's crazy.
We do that, and abortion is one I always want to like just hit that really hard, because we've had an incident on stream that I'm just like, we're not doing that again. You're fine, Danny. You're fine. Just nipping that in the bud. And I feel bad because I got distracted from Trihex, and I'm like, wow, rude, Eva. But thank you, Trihex. So Super Gupo said, are we going to talk about the Destiny debacle? Because I feel as though how Trihex dealt with the aftermath call of the slur is far, far contrary with how Destiny handled the fallout, and in my opinion would stand to be a solid counterpoint. I'm not 100% sure what they mean by this. So I
can think of it. I think I know what he's getting at here.
Okay.
Which again, I'm just gonna try to paraphrase that. So the contrast of how we both dealt with it in the aftermath. I was very emotional, empathetic, as you know, tearful, etc. From what I understand, comparatively, he was he seemed to stream routine as normal, it seemed, or just like did the optimal metrics thing, which was confront it head on as an event, as a stream event, not miss his reaction to everything and anything about it. And then as soon as that was done, yeah, just continued back to normal. Now, I don't know what he did off camera here, but this is what I understand is like he was able to like bounce back swiftly and continue on his daily routine, the optimal routine of streaming, streaming daily. I was going through a very private manner stream, so I did not stream very often at all. I was trying to compose myself to the bare minimum of being able to want to stream, essentially. That's the contrast I think he's getting at there. And this is not me painting anyone in a negative light. That's just me trying to elaborate on what I think the question was getting at there.
Okay, yeah.
If I got that correct.
Yeah, I almost skipped that because I've been like, but I also want you to be able to address what you feel comfortable addressing and would like to. And then the second to last question, because we've got a very important question last, from Straw Hat. Does calling certain slurs gamer words trivialize or normalize these words? What are your thoughts on that? Ooh, I like this question.
Ooh, this is a fun question. Here's what it does, right? So I actually would say it has a really good function. You can interpret that as being trivialized. That's certainly in your right of realm to claim, but it allows you to compartmentalize the most used slurs, typically in gaming, right? That come to mind without directly giving the listeners or those you're communicating with the burden of vividly visualizing what the slur of the word is. When I say N-word, you know what I mean. When I say F-slur, you know what I mean. But if I say gamer words, it's a vague category and they're all kind of floating around, or maybe they are, maybe they aren't. You don't, it's a toned down, minimally explicit alternative you can utilize. Now that might be coincidence because it might also be trivializing them because you're just kind of like using that terminology. But I'm bringing up what could be an interpreted positive along with an interpreted negative. It's ultimately contextual. Now, I do think it's important here to go into why they are called gamer words, because this is an important story. Do you know why they're called gamer words? Do you know where that term came from?
Eva? Honestly, I'm not sure. I just know like PewDiePie, right? That's the only, like, that's the big profile one I know of
Oh,
in
it's
a
actually
heated
hilarious.
gamer moment, but I'm not familiar.
So, in my opinion, where this originated from, there was a real tweet. So yeah, the PewDiePie bridge inward hard R moment happened, right? And then there was a Twitter exchange that happened, and someone was like, someone again, I want to say it was like a Swedish teenager, someone who not in USA, it's contextually important here, right? Was like, what's even the big deal? It's just a gamer word. And then someone asked him, what do you mean by gamer word? It was, it was a black person who was like offended at their attempt to minimalize the intensity of the inward hard R. And this Swedish teenager was like, oh, inward hard R is just a word that people say whenever they're playing games and they get upset.
Oh.
So said person was, I assume, young, and their first time hearing hard R was probably PewDiePie at the bridge. And so he decided a gamer word, which now this moment to a certain extent is actually pretty funny, but that's what spawned the coining of gamer word for me, was that, because it was such a genuine moment of like, wow, this is where we are in 2017 or whatever.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Because they had heard it so often in gamer chat rooms and all that, they just thought it was the gamer word.
Yep. That is like, so first off, that's like wholesome kind of in the weirdest way.
No, it
and
is.
also
It's actually,
incredibly
yeah.
painful.
I can find it for you here.
Oh my gosh. Oh. That's just what they say. Wow.
If you give me a second here. Wow, actually, it was actually really easy to find this here. The original tweet is now deleted, but I found the full of like deleted tweets now. But here is the here, I'll just grab it. That's a bad link. 1 second, let me get the here is for you. My thing is lagging here. Here is that, and then if your chat wants it. Oh crap! Thanks for freaking out. There you go.
Oh no, Trihex, you don't have enough genders for that.
Oh, whoops.
I got you. I got you. If the mods don't got you, I got you. It wasn't deleted by a mod. It was deleted, auto deleted. Sorry, you need a certain amount of genders to do that. That's how we roll here. All right, I'm gonna click it. Wait, chat, stop. You're grounded. Looking forward to right? Actually did anything wrong except for say a gamer word once during a video. Oh boy.
Yeah, and then the rest of the thread was actually this person like daring them to elaborate, and then they elaborate. So, it's just a word you say whenever you're having a heated gamer moment or whatever.
Oh god.
So yeah, that's the this is the original thread that I recognize as coining gamer words. So yeah, which is I would say probably hard R and F slur are the two things I see a lot. A lot. So yeah.
I feel you there. Feel you there.
So now you know the whole context here. Now I bring it back to you. I'll come back to ask you the question for a change here. Do you think gamer words trivializes the whole explicitity of those slurs? What do you think?
I think it depends on the context. I would have initially said absolutely, it's a euphemism, and I typically avoid euphemisms unless it's in a particular context. For example, like, I think it's very important. This is going to go in a weird direction. Bear with me. We have euphemisms for when someone dies. Dying is a very, like, your loved one dying is a painful thing. But at the same time, it creates confusion with children, right? When you don't explain what that is. I took this whole class in psych. It's a psych class on death and dying and explaining death to children and how important being very direct and not using euphemisms is so they can learn how to cope. Of course, you use age appropriate, like you use explanations that are age appropriate, but having that genuine conversation and not dancing around it and not using euphemisms is important. The same with like genitals. There were issues around kids being able to report sexual assault because they had all these weird words and they didn't know exactly what was what. So being able to be clear and not use euphemisms and have the actual words was important in those cases. So I think it can be useful when you want to soften it for whatever reason, right? Like if I'm having a conversation with a group of people who are already emotionally exhausted by racism or whatever the case is, and the mood is very down and we're having to have another hard conversation, then I might use a euphemism that we can maybe giggle at a little bit. And it just depends on the tone of the conversation. Whereas if someone's not taking it seriously, I want to be very clear, direct, and have a different tone of that conversation. So I think it just depends on the tone of the conversation, but that's just like, I've never thought of this before, honestly. So that's just my off the cuff thoughts.
Something's going to mind me right there. First is that like the parent sleeping within me, if and when kids ever, I would have a very liberal take on the whole, like, should the children know what their genitals are and what theirs are and what they are? I would say yeah, because like I think honestly by kindergarten, yeah, you need to know what the penis and the vagina are, because like if I don't tell you, Google's gonna tell you, and if you don't Google it yourself on your own private time at some point somewhere when I'm not around to moderate your internet usage, then some other jackass kid in the playground is gonna tell you what the wee and the vagu are. Without my accord. I can either be proactive and control the conversation and give you the correct information and kind of control the whole tone of the narrative here, or I can, whatever, and just let the dice roll on the playground, and then whatever happens, and I have to like come retroactively after the fact and like, or reactively after the fact and like, explain why Billy was wrong and what it really means and all of the shit. So I just wanted to clarify that for fun, but like, that's interesting though. You're right. Jeff, you're right. I definitely would use past. I wouldn't say, they died, directly. Yeah. So you're not wrong there. That's a very keen observation from you.
A lot of people want to protect children from death, but the reality is they're still living. They live in a world that death happens, and being able to give them the words to know what's actually happening, like, and being very clear on that and not dancing around it ends up becoming important for the development of them being able to handle that. Yeah.
And there is a real world consequence here. I can tell you a very sad story about maybe you heard about this actually. I think it was a little girl who was like 11 years old or maybe like 10 years old in 2014. I have to Google it for you here, but she hung herself in her closet because her father had recently passed and she missed her father really, really bad. And so she wanted to visit heaven to see him real quick. And she hung herself because no one was telling her the honest truth that how death and all that works. They were given I don't want to sound anti-religious here, but like, just like they were giving the religious filter of what actually happened. Oh, he went to heaven. And she's just like, was he coming back? He was always around. He's always here. He's watching you. He's just from heaven. And so whenever, so she just computed like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm just going to, given the logic I was presented here, I'm just going to real quick, express lane over there, come back and I'll check it out. Very, very sad. And it was, I actually don't even really want to show you because like then if I find it, I'll find the picture of her and it's like, it's sad. It's really sad. So this happened in the U.S., correct? Unfortunately, y'all.
I'm probably this conversation. I hate having it because it makes people really uncomfortable, and it's a sad topic for a lot of us. But at some point, I am covering death and dying because that was probably one of the most impactful classes, and we don't learn a lot of us don't learn the proper coping mechanisms or even how to talk to people about it. So it's such an important topic that gets neglected so much.
I completely agree with you. It's a very important topic. And there are some people who are, I hate to say it, there are those who just they're in the loop. They're in the grieving loop and they don't know how to get out of it. They're in it for decades. And that's terrible. I feel for that. It's a very complicated thing. There's no training for it. It's not like, it's not like you go to one wedding, you've been to them all. You go to one funeral, it's very different than the next funeral. This is all super contextual, right? So it's like, your relationship to that person, the circumstances of them dying, all that stuff.
What you think you should feel versus what you might.
Yeah.
And the guilt associated with that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's actually a really cool class. I actually wish I had such a class offered to me. I'm kind of jealous that you were able to do that.
I was very grateful for it. Absolutely.
Monster.
Oh, thank you so much, Drone Rusher. I really appreciate that.
Tryhard 7.
I thought I got all my alerts off. I didn't. Oops. But Trihex. Wait. The most important question. Are you ready?
Oh, wait, we hadn't done it yet? Oh.
I don't think so,
right.
no.
I thought the gay one's going to be the worst one here. Okay, what's the...
Nope. Would you ever get a snug emote?
Oh. I think we metaphorically... Okay, so you mean in the template of... okay, this is really cute, by the way. The snug one is really cute. I have a try-lurk, which is the cute little cat girl looking thing. She's like, peeking. And by the way, just so you know here, try lurk is a 2015 emote. That was before everyone had like the X lurk emote. So do know that this is like, I was pre-meta on that thing. But a try, was it gonna try snug, you said?
Yeah, try snug. We're the snugtivists. We're trying to spread snug across Twitch. And this is something I have to look at my comrades and I have to say, listen, how are you spreading the snug? Do you have a snug emote?
I don't. I would make one. Yeah, I have spare slots actually, so this could be done. The only thing I wonder is like, okay, what would my blanket be? What pattern, what context could I add to my emote by what would be depicted on the blanket in question is the thing. I'm trying to think of like because yours is making out the flag, right?
The trans flag, yes, trans pride.
Right. Okay, yeah, okay. I got the observation. I see you.
Nice, thank you. Someone recognized.
I got the eyes. Yeah, no, I definitely want to do one. I will. Well, my chat seems pretty keen on it now, so I'll definitely I will see what I can do. I just gotta figure out what the blanket would depict.
So
I can figure that out. We can go from there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we did it. This is our activism for the day. I'm done. We've effectively gotten rid of oppression. Good job, chat. I'm so proud of you. Racism's done. We have a snug emote. It's okay now, right? It's not how that works, is it?
This would, man, if we ever did this again, I think, because I wish I had like a great resolve to end this on. But unfortunately, I'm the worst case of anecdotal Andy. So it's like my experiences are not the typical POC experiences. Next, if we ever did this again, like on this topic particularly here, having me and having like 4 other POCs on who have experienced it firsthand differently than I have would be the way to go.
So my mod Lindsay and I are planning on doing that. She is helping because I'm like, so one of the things I'm doing is I'm covering multiple issues. I'm going to have a regular thing probably once every 2 weeks. I just want to cover another issue. I can cover trans rights. Fucking easy, right? I can't cover race issues. So I'm going to get together and I'm going to have a co-host that does know shit. And I'm going to say, hey, let's figure this out. What are the questions? Who are the people we're having on? And I was hoping that you would join us. It's probably going to be one of our first panels. So I would love to have you. Lindsay's going to help me plan that. And then I know I probably want to invite Uni the Lion Roars. And there was someone else Vanessa. So I want to get a few people in here and I would love to have you there if you have time. So
Ooh, I think I would make time actually.
that would be awesome. Thank you so much for the time you made today. And I'm really excited to have you on again. I would also love to have you on a few other ones. So I'll just send you invites and make it to what you would like to
Yeah,
and
let me
can.
know. Yeah, as long as we have like the planning, like I would say ideally a week's advance notice.
Yes.
I can definitely accommodate. If I have like a day's notice, it's kind of yikes. I'll see what I can do. Try yikes in chat. So I got to plug here because I feel like you're flexing your snug. I got to hit him with my emote here.
Yeah.
And try yikes in chat. Can you make out what it's probably? I want to know if can you tell what's going on in the emote, or is it like not visually obvious what's
Is
happening there?
it like this?
Yeah, I'm waiting for your Twitch
Oh,
flag.
oh, yeah. Like a hand up? Like yikes?
Yeah, it's shielding from the cringe. Correct. Yeah,
Ah.
it was an actual face I made because I was like actually dying. Actually, I'm laughing about it now because it was actually a very terrible negative thing. It was probably the most awkward scuff podcast I've ever been on before. It was, yeah. But yeah, it was giga cringe. Like I could not. I had to shit myself. It was insane. It was and again, I'm not making anything negative here. I'm just literally stating what the event was. It was the Trainwrecks X trade chat incident on Scuff Podcast like last year. Giga cringe. If y'all want to Google it to know what it's about, you can. The YouTube video is on YouTube somewhere because someone archived it. It's an awful watch. It's like 5 minutes long. A shield won't be enough. You got to have like what's it called, the not the gas mask, the welder's mask. You got to have the welder's mask and like the titanium gloves on because you want to just like you're reinforcing the steel door to not invade you at all because it's
Oh my
bad.
gosh. Oh
So yeah,
my
so squad W, but yeah, good lord, even Train knows that was I mean he got 30 days for that one, so he knows that was like a
Oh
so.
no. Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm adopting that, by the way. Giga cringe. That is incredible.
Okay, wait. If you want all my things here. So I routinely do generational observational humor. So like boomer versus zoomer, right?
Mhm.
And then no one cares about millennials or Generation X because they're irrelevant. So boomer versus zoomer, right? So I so I say that I routinely shit post here that the kids who are born after 2015, like after like the spawn of woke culture or whatever you want to define it as now, they're going to be known as the hyper zoomers. They're going to like dude, they're going to be hyper zoomers. Their nostalgia will be like the first iPad. Like they're not even like they're so like to them tactile buttons are archaic. They're like you're going to hold a Game Boy and be like why doesn't it work? I'm trying to play Pokemon, the first Pokemon, I can't, it's not doing anything, right? Hyper zoomer. And then like us millennials, we will become what we hate. We're gonna become the the giga boomers.
Oh
We're gonna be so
no.
fixated on how the internet was because the internet changes so frequently now because of the hyper acceleration of culture on the internet because of our increased globalization as a society or as a planet. That yeah, we're gonna be like, remember back in 2005 when MySpace and nowadays it's the TikTok and we're gonna be that in another like 15 years. So yeah, we're gonna be what we hate like tenfold. So we'll be the hyper boomers or the giga boomers, and there will be the hyper zoomers, and it'll be World War III, and only one will prevail, and we'll have to see what happens.
Oh my gosh. Oh
So
no. This is a bad future. I'm here for it though. We're gonna be here for it though. Oh my gosh.
you'll see. Hey, look, you'll know because well, maybe you already know now. It's like whenever you're at a point where like you can't relate, you're like, what are these kids doing? I don't get it. Like what's like do you get TikTok? Like do you get like I don't know. Like there's we're already at that point now. I feel like where it's like there are some generational things, or just some people don't understand what the appeal is. Like you can like kind of like okay, it's not for me, but I get why one would like it. I don't even get why people like X. That's whenever it's like, ooh, the rift is coming here. I'm not sure if I can relate to it.
I think Trihex is closer to boomerism than I am.
No, I didn't cite anything. I used
Oh,
TikTok
not
as
yet, not yet.
yeah, I did not. I only use TikTok as an example. I actually am not against TikTok at all. I was just using it as a cited example of like where one, probably a more relatable one would be like mumble rap. Do you get the appeal of mumble rap?
I'm not
Maybe you do, maybe you
familiar
don't.
with. I guess my struggle would be like the Fortnite dances, but like I don't get why people like them. But at the same time, I'm like, my brother's over there dancing. I'm not gonna be mad, you know. So, but I feel like I am very like personally, I am very mindful of this because I'm like, oh, I've sat there and watched people shit on my generation for long enough. I'm not gonna be them. But not everyone has that mentality, and I already hear my peers whining. So it's on its way.
Well, okay. So you're not wrong there. I think people who are in our circle are very self-aware of the irony of if they don't have like a routine self-evaluation to not become such, right? However, we are atypical. We are not the normal masses.
Yeah.
And by that, I would say by extension here, if you agree with any legitimacy in our in the problematic toxicity that is our social media and the habits that it reinforces through continued usage, then you know that the irony that Facebook meant to connect people actually does the opposite. It makes it creates echo chambers that people only want to have their worldview reinforced, never questioned. And if you do question it, you're ejected from your entire social habitat. So ultimately, there you just and you take that multiplied by a decade, and you have bigots on steroids now, right? And they who are our current age now, who will be 40 somethings in 10 years, they're gonna be the giga boomer.
I can't.
So we'll see. That's my theory. I hope I'm wrong. I pray I am wrong, and we'll see what happens. So.
I hope so too, but I have a feeling you're a little more on point than I want to admit.
Yeah, well, if social media, my hot take here is, this might be my most authoritarian hot take here, but social media needs some massive regulations. It is. I have seen the effects already on the youth. It's bad. The Zoomers right now, I'm derailing right now our topic here, but they're fucked. That's the way I can put it. They are
It's really bad.
Fucked. The current 16-year-olds
Misinformation.
now, the current like 13 to 18-year-olds right now, when they're going to be like productive 20 somethings, they're going to have major social issues, social ineptitude, and a bunch of other shit because their perceived value of the world was reinforced by the gamification of social engagement through social media. Which I can get into. I can get into some hot examples that I have here as your resident anecdote, Andy. But I will save that for another podcast. I gotta hook them in and then pull away. Gotta come back another time.
Saving some content for next time.
So Unalove squad. If y'all like me, then you gotta beg your content provider to grant me the blessing to come back here, because I hit you with the sickest of clickbait. Literally got you right there by the lip. So I'm on that.
Thank you so much, Trihex. if I don't have you on again, where could my chat find you?
Ooh, y'all can find me on twitch.tv/Trihex, Trihex. I'm live every day except Thursday. Except it's so stupid. I'm live every day except Thursday, except this coming Thursday, because I will be live this Thursday because there's a huge Mario Maker update that got announced today that I'm like mad hype for. So I'm about to like go live on mine and like nerd out over the whole thing, because like it was just like this huge thing that happened recently. So yeah, I'll be live every day this week. So I will sleep is for the week. I'll be live. We won't do it.
Sleep is when for you die, right? That's what my boss used to tell me.
Yeah, 100%. I love the perspective that like if you what is it? Not sleep is for the weak, but the it doesn't feel like work when you're doing what you love. I think it's what some of those lines here. So like,
yeah.
and that's really more about the power of perspective. So like if you can, if you feel like you are a great artist, but you're stuck working like part-time Books a Million, part-time McDonald's, and you hate both jobs and you want to do art, then but you're just like you're kind of like numb to like the mundaneness of working these two jobs. They're taking up all your time and you have no creative outlet. Then you have to like calibrate your expectations here and understand through the power of perspective that you are working. This is step one of what your real goal is, which is like to be economically viable and able to then exercise your artistic ability by no longer being bound by all this economic bullshit. So step one is like get out of the rut. But the end goal here is to through perspective here is to do the art, obviously. So if you have that perspective comparatively to just the one about thinking about today, but thinking about the end game of why you're doing what you're doing today, then it will feel a lot less like you want to just like never wake up again, to go back to the earlier example. So
yeah, absolutely.
Cross-reference in the same podcast, man. I'm good at this.
You are on it. You are on it. Trihex, thank you so much. I am gonna hop off, have a quick like brief chat with my chat really quick. Thank you so much for joining us. Have fun on Thursday. I hope I get to swing by when you're geeking out over your update. And thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. All right, y'all. Much love. Later.
Bye.